for those of you in your community, I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment. I was actually senior red team specialist there, so offensive security. I'm a hacker. My last job was working for the federal government. I hacked power plants for the federal government, and then I also have 3 black badges from DEF CON, which is a hacking convention in Vegas every year. So this is like my whole wheelhouse, right? I've banned about 2 million players over my career. Like this is what I do. So the last 7 years now, I've been a streamer. I've been streaming and making video games and doing this kind of stuff. So now we're in this weird position where this thing happened, and I'm like the subject matter expert on the thing. So we're all talking about it and trying to find out what's going on. But I did a breakdown of what happened to you guys on stream the other day, and seeing that your machine had downloaded and run a cheat tool automatically in the middle of the game. And it's very clear that you didn't want that to happen because his text was in chat. The thing that was most interesting to me is if that guy hadn't put that in chat, there'd be no way that you could defend yourself. No one would believe it, right? So I'm actually glad that the attacker did that, where he put his text in chat, because that saved you guys a huge amount of trouble. But with this, what's up?
I was going to say, well, for some reason, when he did to me, he never put any. So the main difference is that that's what happened to Jen Burton. So the first thing that happens, you watched 2 different clips, right? So
yes,
with the whole like the text and like the display with like the cheats or whatever, or the checkboxes, that was with Jen Burton, and for some reason on my POV, he never typed in my chat or like in the in-game chat, and he never showed that like box of like checklists or whatever, like of cheats. Like it was just like I was literally just randomly granted like aimbot out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing popped up on my screen. There was like compared to Jen Burton's POV. So that was like I don't know if that means anything, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. So here's something that I'm interested on this too. When that all occurred, right? And those started going through, did you see Jen Burton's actual texts going through where it was advertising the hacker? Did that go into the lobby or was that
no.
client side?
That was so like in-game chat, unless you're like an admin of the lobby, it's not universal to the lobby, like the messages that you type. So like those messages that he was typing was only shown to his team. Only his team could see it.
Do we know if it actually went to the rest of his team or just to him?
It was the rest of his team, yeah.
Okay, so they had hooked the ability to do chat at that point. So in order to do that, they'd have to have access to the client memory or client functions, which would mean an injection into the client to do that, in order for that to send text like that. So that's interesting. The other thing from there is you did a virus scan afterwards, right? You used Malwarebytes? I saw a clip of that.
I used Malwarebytes and Windows, like this virus scan, and there was nothing. I didn't do a full like PC scan, but I just scanned and I didn't find anything. Okay. I did replace my PC entirely with another one, so I'm not surprised. One.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Do you still have that PC where you can run scans on it and everything? I would be interested in seeing you run Malwarebytes again, but instead of doing like a quick scan, did you do a deep scan on it for like scan for rootkits and everything like that? Because there's a bunch of toggled options.
Just a quick scan.
I would do that. I would like keep that thing off the network for sure, but like turn it on and run a deep scan on it and do the advanced options, because there's an advanced options menu. You just check all the boxes and you're good to go. It's like 2 seconds.
Okay.
Because like if we can prove the difference between your machine being compromised directly, which could be possible, or the game being compromised, that's the big thing that has to be proven right now. And everyone's making a claim saying like, oh, the game is compromised. It's RCE. The easy anti-cheat is compromised. RCE. There's no proof of it. When we're dealing with security, we have to prove these types of vulnerabilities before we jump the gun and start making claims. And there's a ton of people just making wild claims right now. And the only one who can really prove that at that point is like you and Jen Burton. Were your machines compromised? If your machines aren't compromised, if we have no evidence of compromise on those machines, which this doesn't fully prove it, but it kind of tilts it in the direction where your machines weren't directly compromised, then we have to keep digging. And it's one of those things to like find out, is the client actually vulnerable? Is the server vulnerable? Is easy anti-cheat vulnerable? There's a lot of stuff that has to be proven. And I hate all the wild claims. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, I can't really tell if my computer is compromised, just because I feel like I think he's able to. He just decides not to. Like he wants to get I think his whole message is because he's been doing this for a while. Like to give you context, it's like I ran into this guy. His name is like in game 2, Destroyer 2009 or whatever. Like you've seen the bot clip and stuff like that. he's been like terrorizing ranked like for a while now,
Oh
like
yeah.
just messing with ranked. Like he would just go into the lobby and he's like literally unbannable, and he would do this like there was another thing because he was unbannable, he would do what is that? What is the word? Basically, he would be displayed as a console player, but he was on PC. He was like, I think he was using like an emulator. I think that's what it was called. So
Okay.
he was like practically like unbannable, which is why he would just stream snipe me and just like kill me every single game and stuff like that. But like he was literally just like untouchable in game. Like he was nobody would able to ban him or anything like that because using
Yeah.
like an emulator.
I also
Um,
saw the video where he was spawning in a number of bots, and those bots were like kind of running after players automatically. It was like 40 plus bots jumping in.
yeah,
This
yeah,
this makes me worry of one thing is access to the server in some capacity. So when you're dealing server side cheats like that, I also saw that he was able to generate about 4,000 packs in the game and hand them to another player. So
yeah.
I was talking to
Yeah,
Mandy.
he handed that to Mandy,
Yep.
me, and Jen Burton,
Yeah.
and another person called his Watson. He handed me like 2,500 packs.
Yeah, he handed Mandy 4,000. So like I talked to Mandy the other day about this yesterday. We got a video out for that and was talking about it because if he's able to generate packs automatically, it's either going to be stolen credit cards, which is totally possible, right? They can do that kind of stuff unless are those purchasable in game by chance?
The packs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could buy them. You can also gift them. Like you can, as a player, like a regular, like a casual, you can gift packs. I'm pretty sure to other people.
Okay. So at that point, it's like it could be stolen credit cards buying a shitload of packs. That's possible. It could be based on the other types of exploitations he has. I'm worried that he has a client that is sending information up to the server and the server's accepting it, or he has direct access to the server. It seems unlikely that he has direct access to the server, like
But
remote
he
code
can crash
execution
the
access.
server.
He
He
could.
can also, yeah. He was crashing the server.
Crashing the server is one thing. Getting direct
Yeah.
full access to the server, like administrator access to the server, is totally different. When
Yeah.
we have a client to a server, right? So we've got a client and the client connects up to the server. It sends packets back and forth. So the client will send a packet, the server will send packets back. If the client sends up a packet that is malformed in some way and says, hey, I'm actually a console player now, if the server just accepts that without checking to see if it's true first, these types of things can be done. If you send a bunch of stuff up to the server and say, I'm actually 40 accounts now, spawning all these dudes, and the server just accepts it, then you get these types of problems. So it could be that he has a modified hack client that can do these types of things, and the server's just allowing for it, which is kind of bad testing. You get rid of that with fuzzing testing generally, where you check all the inputs and make sure that the client is a dummy, not able to run the server, if that makes sense. Not able to inform the server what to do. Just it's a dummy that displays things. Or he has direct server access, which is scarier, right? And we can't
Yeah.
really tell the difference between those two things, but it's very clear he's instructing the server in some way with these types of exploits. And that's spooky. So that's one we can't really solve until we find out exactly how this is being done.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know. Like you could probably name anything. He's probably done it. Like he can crash the server on his own will. He can. I don't even think he has to be in the game. Oh, maybe I think he actually has to be in the game to do that.
So he
Um,
has to be in the game. That's
it
interesting.
se- yeah, it seems like he has to be in the same lobby as you to crash the server. I don't think he had. Like if he isn't, then he can't. But I'm. Well, so there's been cases where he's in the lobby and he crashes the server, but then there's also been recently where my game, like the server crashes, obviously due to somebody doing it. Like it's not just like Apex server just crashing out of nowhere. Someone's deliberately crashing my server within like the first minute or two of like playing the game.
Do you know
And
who's in the game when that happens?
no, I have no idea. I don't know like if he's in my lobby because he's not like chasing me or anything. Like he's not trying to kill me. He's just like deliberately like trying to just crash my game before I even get to play,
Yeah.
right? So I have no idea if he's actually in the lobby or not. But I know in the past when he was doing it, he was in the lobby. So
Yeah, that lends
because
credence more to the client. Like if he has to be in game, if he has to, then lends more credence to a hacked client that is able to inform the server on what to do, which this could be fixable then. Like they could find out what's going on by looking at server logs and trying to stuff. And I guarantee the security team is already doing that. I guarantee they're already digging through all of that shit to try and find a way to do this. 100%. So
well, they've been
yeah.
disabled. They disabled my account and my teammates for some reason. They disabled my teammate's account too, even though he didn't get hacked.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, my accounts have been disabled since they've been like just investigating it. So
Are
That's
they
a,
have
that's
they
a deal
reached
of
out
that.
to you guys? Are they at least talking to you guys about it? Of like, hey,
Yeah, they. I was told I was supposed to get unbanned yesterday morning, and then obviously that I didn't expect that
didn't
to
happen.
happen, and so they needed more time. So, but yeah,
That,
they've been just like still working on it.
I'm glad they're talking to you guys about it though, because likely what they're doing there is they're looking through all the logs. They're looking through absolutely everything that was going on. They're trying to determine the cause of this, because if they can figure it out with it being this egregious, they can turn this around. And they're the fact that they've got your account shut down, that sucks, but it is definitely for the best to determine the cause of the vulnerability. Because
Yeah, for sure.
there's so many different types of ways that this can be done. That's why I'm like trying to investigate all of this, because my big thing throughout the industry was like pattern recognition to determine the cause of exploitation or to determine ways of finding ways to catch people doing this, right? Find ways
Yeah.
to catch botters, find ways to catch cheaters using manual methods and heuristics. So when I get this kind of information, it's like, oh, he's likely to be in game. He's more often in game when it happens than when he's not.
Yeah.
That means he probably had a client to server cheat in some way where the client was informing the server and maybe evolved it over time where he's like, well, I don't want to be in game anymore. That's a hassle. I need to be able to get the server instance remotely and then shut that down remotely. And he evolved his tool set, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There was another. I don't know if I should say this, but like there was another time. So
Well,
there's
don't
a
put
thing called.
yourself in any bad
No, no,
position if you're not allowed to talk about
no.
something. Yeah.
It should be fine. I think it's like pretty worth it to like speak about it because
Yeah.
this is probably gonna help you. Like there, when he was crashing my server without me knowing if he's not in my lobby or not. I had performance display on, which is like an option in the game where it displays your like FPS, your packet loss, your ping, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it also, I don't know if it displays the server ID or something like it displays something that's related to the server. And as soon as I like turn it off, he was not able to do that anymore. Because I guess he didn't obtain information off that performance display to like
Yes.
crash the server, or unless EA or something they like patch something right in the back end while that was going on and stopped it because it stopped happening after I turned that off.
So the server is just, yeah, I know that look. This chat saw me get all excited about it. He's getting the server ID through your client that way if it's actually displaying that server ID, which is allowing him to target the actual server. There's likely going to be a command somewhere that is a packet that is being sent up to the server that's allowing him to do these modifications. With that in mind, when he jumps into the game, his client gives him the server ID. So he's targeting your server instance based on that ID that's inside of your menu, the one that you disabled.
Yeah.
That makes absolute sense. That's 100% it. So for him to be able to do things, he has to pull some information, either from a streamer that is displaying that information for the particular lobby that they're in, or with his own character that is in that lobby as well. That makes sense. Yeah, this lends more and more to him not having direct access to the server. It seems incredibly unlikely that he has direct access to the server now. It seems way more likely that it's a client that is telling the server what to do because he needs that information. There's a little bit of fog of war where he has to do a little bit of footwork to find the target correctly.
Yeah.
Obfuscating server ID, would that help? I would want to know what command, if they can figure out what command is being sent, where it is including that, they can kill this. If that is the only way of getting through for it. It is, you'll find very often that many issues like this start with a single seed vulnerability, like one thing that is wrong, right? And they just find newer and weirder ways to use that vulnerability to gain extra powers, slowly gaining a foothold with this. So with him having that one thing, we have a common goal here, which is get the server ID before I can do exploits. And if he can get the server ID and then do exploitation after that, that's a really interesting failure in terms of what happens if you obfuscate that from the client. What happens if you stop showing that to the player? What happens if the client is unable to pull the server ID because it's stored fully server-side? If they do that, and that dude's entire cheat like suite is based on him getting the server ID, he loses. It's always about finding a novel way of shutting down the attacker. That seems like a good route. That seems like a possible route.
Don't you agree though that the whole scenario that happened during the tournament is way different than like what he does during ranked?
I agree. Yes, I super agree. That being said, I am worried about in regards to not RCE yet, because RCE is a very serious thing, and for him to get RCE on your client, he would need to get RCE to the server, execute code on the server to pass down to get another RCE vulnerability on your client. Chain vulnerabilities like that do exist. They're insanely tricky to pull off. There also is no guarantee that the client and the server are vulnerable in a way that would be allowed, if that makes sense. So that's why I was like, well, Occam's razor on this a little bit. It is more likely that the end user's machine, so yours and the other machine, are compromised directly, which is why I was looking down that route. It's like, if we can prove direct compromise on the machine, then that is more likely. It doesn't mean that it's not impossible to get RCE in that way. It just means it's less likely, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There was also, to give you even more context, like during the day of like the tournament. So there was two things that happened, and it was kind of like, it was out of the ordinary. So that's why I'm bringing it up, and I don't know if it means anything.
Sure.
So like the very first thing that happened that was like kind of random. I don't remember exactly when it happened. Like, I'd have to watch my VOD. I don't know if it was before the tournament started or after one of the games. It might have been after the second game, but there was a time where I was just sitting in the lobby waiting for the game to start, like the next game for the tournament, and my screen like went black. But it was like my whole screen went black, and there was like an Apex loading logo on the bottom right, and then my screen went back to normal, back to like the lobby where I was. And I don't know if that's like where he just like went into my account, entered my account at that time, which is why my screen went black, because that's never happened before.
Could be when the client, because in the case of what was being displayed in game, your client had to be hooked, injected. It could be the game client reacting to the injection happening right then. He was likely maybe in the client from that moment on. If that's not something that you normally see with the game, and that's something that's never happened before, yeah, that could make sense. You know, that could make sense as the moment of intrusion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the second thing that happened, I don't know if I was just like tripping. Like, I was asking Jen Byrne if this happened to him, but I remember like when I did get like the aimbot, when I would like ADS or like look at something, like there was times where my screen looked off. I don't know. It looked like as if like my screen was being mirrored in a way, maybe, or like I don't know how to describe it. Like, it would be you could have to be like in person to see my screen, but it was like, yeah, maybe it might have been my FOV change. I don't think it was, but it just like my screen like looked different, like as if I was like I knew it was gonna happen, like in my head, like before I shot my gun. I don't know how to describe it, but I don't know if that is normal or not. But definitely my screen has something like changed, like I don't know if it was texture or a mirror effect from like him cloning his PC or something.
Would you say that it's like, you'll have to describe the effect to me a little bit? Yeah, it's a little bit hard to understand. Would you mean that like the resolution changed in some way, or do you think that maybe there was a slight delay on actions?
No, there was no delay. The resolution was still the same. It was just like, I don't know, maybe there was like a little bit of distortion of like where I was like aiming at, if that makes any sense, like visually.
So like the aim was like weird, is what you mean?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like it just looked weird. Like before I even shot, in my head it registered, oh shit, like, you know, I this looks weird, like something's gonna happen. Like that's what like went through my head.
No, I mean it makes sense. Like there's when you play a game as much as you guys do at the pro level, man, like anything that feels off with the client, it's gonna not make sense to a lot of us because we don't play the game that much. But any minutia that is like 0.1% off that feels wrong, they're like, no, the game's wrong. Something's wrong. And it makes sense. You guys spend thousands of hours in that game, tens of thousands of hours.
Yeah, I have like almost 11,000 hours. So like as soon as I saw something like off or like just, you know, like even 1% of the time, I could tell. So
yep. So yeah, that totally makes sense. It's going to be weird because like anybody else is going to be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
But dude, when somebody plays a game this much, when they've played in that game for 11,000 hours, anything off, they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like something is wrong. And people are like, what are you talking about? It looks the same. No. They know because they've spent that long in the game.
Another thing to add, Jen Burns like DM'd me, which is the other guy that like got hacked. He said that he like did like a full root scan and full scan, and he did not find anything on his PC.
So, as much as I want that to clear up the idea that it was a compromised machine, attackers can clean up after themselves. While the attack was going on, how long was it before you guys turned off your machines?
Well, for me personally, uh, like maybe I don't know. I would have to watch because I stayed
It's like
on for at
hours.
least like 2 3 hours maybe.
Yeah. The only way that you would have been able to stop him from cleaning up after himself at that point, it would be plug pull immediately. Just like, boop,
Yeah,
no more connection, no more, you can't do shit. Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish, God, it's like a crime scene, right? It's like a tampered crime scene at that point. So
yeah.
it's hard to know if he had direct access through the game client, or it's hard to know if he had direct access through a compromise on your guys' machine. Damn. Well, yeah, deleting files after, it's pretty normal. So cleanup kind of stuff is pretty normal in terms of infections like that. You'd be amazed at how often that happens, even inside of corporate environments where like companies get knocked over by nation states pretty commonly, and then they clean up after themselves afterwards. It's generally just seen as training most of the time. So you'll get all these people that enter a network, they just cause a mess. And then like 30 minutes later, with all these alarms going off, they ghost, they disappear. All the logs are gone. It's like they were never there. And it's because their lead showed up and then showed them how to disappear. And it's training. We see it all the time inside of companies. The companies get knocked over constantly. So like even a basic understanding of how to clean up would be easy to do there. And it'd be really hard to detect afterwards, which sucks. I don't know what the level of skill of the attacker is, but if he's been doing this for a long enough time, he probably has some skills behind him, which is good, right? So he's got that. He's just using it for shitty reasons. Unfortunately, like being part of the hacking community for long as I have, right? Most of the people from our community, we just want to solve a puzzle. And some people, especially younger people, don't really care about the implications of that for the people that are in the path, right? This is a dude just solving a puzzle. He wants to see what he can do with it. He doesn't really care what anyone else feels about it. It's pretty normal. It's awful. It's sad because someone that's that willing to solve the puzzle, that willing to go and dig into tech like this, would be a force for good inside of the industry. He could find amazing shit. He could fix amazing shit. And instead it goes this route, which sucks, you know.
Yeah.
Does APEC have unique vulnerabilities? Don't know. What we're trying to determine at this point is what is the scope of the vulnerability, right? Is the client vulnerable? If so, how? If the client is vulnerable, we should be able to reproduce it. If the client is not vulnerable, then how did they get in these two players' machines? If Easy Anti-Cheat is vulnerable, why didn't he use this on more machines? What is the scope, right? And anytime you have vulnerabilities like this is the normal investigation process. You talk to everybody involved, you find out every piece of information you can, you put together all that information, and then you put together likely scenarios and you go, well, let's investigate each of these likely scenarios. Hacking and conflict resolution stuff like this for hacking, for like you're trying to find out what happened when this goes on, it's a shitload of research, man. And you go down every rabbit hole possible because you need to prove before you make a statement. And there's too many people on the internet making statements before proving. So
Well, everyone's a programmer or like a hacker as soon as things happen. So
yeah, I read it on Reddit, so I know, it's ridiculous.
It's typical.
Yep. But anyway, yeah, no, this is really useful information actually. So I think for me, the biggest thing that I got out of this, man, the server ID thing. That is so important. That is so important, and I'm sure that they know. I'm sure that the security team knows. But for the general community, this makes more sense. If he can use if he can find out the server ID that you're on, and he can only execute attacks if he knows your server ID, then that makes more sense that it's just a modified client and the server listening to it. It is much less likely that he has access to the server.
Well,
We'll see.
Another thing is that like a while ago, like this is before Destroyer 2009's like existence, was a thing. There was like a long time ago in Apex where people like lobbies would get DDoS. Like this is what we would call it. Like not the server just straight up crashing.
Yeah.
Basically, the lobbies would be so overloaded to the point where the server would cause the crash, but it would take a little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
And we would do all of these things where turn off our display, and stuff like that, and it still would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that like it means anything, or
it does.
DDoSing and like crashing the server is two different things.
So DDoSing is a completely different thing. The way the denial service works is you're connected to the game server. Game server is just like any other computer. It has an IP address, right? And you know what that IP address is, or the range of IP addresses that are available for certain types of servers in the instances. Hitting that with a whole bunch of traffic that looks like normal people is going to blow up the server. In denial of service, the defender always loses, and that's a shitty thing to think about, but unless the defender has more hardware in place, they lose. And it's because the attacker can be faster. They can be leaner. When you are sending an attack, you're just saying, hey, I want to connect to your server. And the server has to take that down and go, are you allowed to connect to my server? Are you from an IP that I have blocked? Is this an okay connection to do? It has to make so many more choices on the defense side that the attacker always wins because the attacker can use less processing power to destroy the defender, if that makes sense. So it's just you always lose with DDoS. The only thing you can do is just have bigger infrastructure. So when we deal with things like Cloudflare, they just have massive infrastructure and be like, we're going to put this huge infrastructure in the way. And even Cloudflare has fallen over before. Half the internet went down with them when it happened, dude. It was wild. So like, you'll see some wild stuff like that in terms of denial of service. But yeah, with denial of service, they just need to know the address of the server, which is trivial when your game client is connecting to the servers, right? Same thing happens for World of Warcraft. Same thing happens for that. And it back in the day, if you remember Lizard Squad, right? You remember that? They brought down WoW's server all the time. That was using low orbit ion cannon, which is like, actually in that case, I think they were actually using Lizard Stressor. That's what it was. So theirs was using Lizard Stressor, which was like low orbit ion cannon, which is a DDoS service where you can actually get a whole bunch of bots that just go and try and DDoS one target. And the IP addresses for WoW servers were public, so you just nuke them. That was it. It was just pointed at this. It's like having a gun. You just point it at it, and all these devices try to go connect to the server and it just blows up. Normal stuff. So yeah, that's a totally different attack and much easier to pull off. What he's doing is a little bit more sophisticated, but requires this critical piece of information, the server ID. That makes this more interesting, and it gets us closer to understanding what causes the vulnerability and closer to understanding what could be done to stop it, right? And I'm sure if the security team didn't already know this, which they could, this is going to be helpful for them to know. And it's helpful for the community because it gives them context, makes them feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope you don't feel super bad. I know it's probably really stressful.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, it's just been like a pain to like try to stream because I haven't had my account.
Yeah.
But I figured it out now. But other than that, like I'm not. In my eyes, like you said earlier, I feel like this guy is, you know, what he knows what he's doing to a degree.
Oh, yeah.
It's more sophisticated than the usual hacks. So I feel like people are like, you know, blowing it up, but you know, they can, you know, hack into your keylog you, etc. And I'm just like, if he wanted to do that, he would have done it by now, right?
Yep.
So like, I'm still taking precautions and stuff like that, but I don't think, I really feel like his message is just to exploit how bad Apex's security, or I guess anti-cheat is.
Yes.
And he just wants to exploit that as much as possible.
Yeah, there are some people that gain like kind of positive feelings out of that. They choose a target and they run with it, right? His whole thing right now is he wants to focus on Apex. Whatever that, for whatever reason. You know, whatever internal reason mechanism is for that. For me, it's easy to get in, like, it's easy to kind of get ahead of yourself and be like, I'm going to get inside this guy's head to determine why. It's not really about why. It's about what, right? So, like, when you find out what the dude is doing, like how he's doing this, the big how, you don't have to convince him to change because that's a choice he's making. And it's a choice that he doesn't care about the morality of it. He doesn't give a shit. He just wants to solve the puzzle. It's a drive. I feel the same thing when I'm doing that kind of stuff, but I do it in scope when I'm hired to do it, right? I love solving the puzzle when I'm hired to solve the puzzle. It's like being a bloodhound, right? You go after it.
Well, yeah, it gives you like a sense of power solving it.
Yeah, it feels awesome. And you're like, I solved the puzzle. Feels good. And you're like, cool. You were paid to do it. But this guy's solving the puzzle in a way that's detrimental to others, and it's clear he doesn't care, right? So, like, I get it. The thing that's kind of rough about this one is the way that he's doing it is he's gone from kind of just cheating in games to getting more and more of this, and now he's trying to cause as much public damage as possible, but there's no rhyme or reason as to why. Normally, an attacker would release his methods at some point, right? And be like, this is how I'm doing this. Go fix this. It's not doing that. It's keeping it private. So they have to do an investigation to figure it out, and that's rough. And for those out there who think like, oh, you know, Respawn's doing a shitty job, or like Apex is bad, or the security team is awful, whatever the hell it is, right? You have to understand that they can't communicate any of this stuff. They can't. Because if they communicate these types of things, there's a couple of things that happen. They open themselves up to legal liability, to financial liability, depending on what's going on. And then on top of it, they tip their hand to the attacker. All of that stuff is bad. You don't want to do that. It's fog of war, right? Yeah. And with that in mind, they can't talk about this stuff. More often than not, they can't say shit. So the best thing you can do, cheer those devs on. You may feel like they're not doing enough, but they can't tell you everything that they're doing. So if you can share them on and say, hey, this sucks. What can I do to help? What kind of information can we give you? How can we report this stuff? The more that you can be their echelon, their giant system of radars of information, the better they can fix this stuff. That's all you can do at this point, you know? My chat is full of spiders. God damn it. Chat, why? Oh, they're all spiders now. The Apex situation is scary. It's only scary because we don't know, right? And for me, I'm excited about it because I'm like, I don't know how he did this. And the moment you said server ID, so excited because it's like we're getting a little bit closer to figuring this out. And I think the community is going to feel a lot better overall the more information that we can find out and determine for the methods. And my hope is that at the end of this trail, we find what's called a proof of concept, which is this is how the vulnerability is done, this is how the company fixed it, and this is how it's not going to happen again in the future. Full disclosure on that kind of stuff would be great. I don't know if they'll ever do that. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but that would be my hope.
They probably won't.
Yeah.
They probably won't. Oh, people are... I don't know if you're busy, but someone actually brought up a good point. So majority of the competitors, they're all like forced, if you're streaming, to stream on a 10-minute delay, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually perfect timing. It actually makes a lot of sense too. Coincidentally, I don't know, I haven't checked the timestamp of, server ID and 10-minute delay, but what if there might be a coincidence of him injecting these hacks once the 10-minute delay catches up?
Wait, say that again?
Because, I just explained that like pretty bad, but basically like he can only see the server ID as soon as we're in the game, right?
Yes.
Like the performance display. But the thing is that everyone that is streaming has 10-minute delay on. So
yes.
When it actually happened on stream was when he finally got the server ID 10 minutes into the game, which would make sense on he actually needs the server ID or the performance display to inject these hacks.
That's exactly what it is.
Because both times when it happened to me and Jen Burton, it was like I don't know the timestamp, like I said. Okay. It might have been like 10 minutes later into the game. I'm not sure, but it might have been before 10 minutes later or 10 minutes before. I'm not sure, but I would have to look at the timestamp. But it might have. Let me see. Yeah, they were saying Jen was on round 4, mine was round 2. So when it happened to me, it was earlier into the game. So maybe it was because I don't know if that was because it was the same code. But yeah, that might not be like the right theory, but because the first time it happened, it was later into the game. So maybe it caught up the delay and then it happened, but for me it happened earlier, so it might not be true.
I mean, I think that's really interesting because if the timing lines up, it again, server ID seems the most likely. Server ID absolutely seems the most likely for this. It looks like also, I was sent an image just now. So this happened on Hal's screen after he made him install Malwarebytes 30 to 120 minutes after the incident. Where when you ran Malwarebytes, did it say, because they showed me an image, I want to confirm this. Did it say that there was an inbound connection with an IP address?
Yeah, someone showed me that. Yeah, I didn't see that when I was like streaming or doing that. Like I never saw that. But people were telling me that like, hey, your IP got leaked, blah 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 blah. I never saw it. So I didn't watch on VOD and see if that actually happened. But
so they've got a screenshot here for me. And I'm not going to show it on stream, obviously, because I don't know if it's your IP address. It looks like it's actually the attacker's jump box.
Yeah, it might be.
It is. I wouldn't show that anywhere. But is that not your IP at the end of that URL there?
Let me see. How would I check that?
I would go to Google and say, "What's my IP?"
All right. So listen, I'm a noob. You're the professional here.
Yeah.
That is not mine.
Okay. I'm not surprised. So the reason why this is interesting is that IP address, if you run it through VirusTotal, is actually showing that it's running as malicious. There's a shitload of malicious hits on that. And that screenshot shows that there was an inbound connection to your computer from that IP address over port 135 on your stream. There's a screenshot for it. I think this dude had direct access to your machine. I don't think it's RCE. With this evidence right here, I think there was direct access to your machine.
Yeah, on the link you posted, do I have to click on that, or is it just a number at the end of the link?
You can just click on it. Yeah, you can click on it to pull this up to see exactly what that is. Yep. So I'm going to pull this up now because we can confirm that this is the case, right?
Hold on, give me 1 second.
Sure. Can we get a screenshot of this directly from the VOD instead of a cropped one, if you have that? Not you, the person who sent it to me. It's Furkan. Furkan sent me this.
This is definitely not mine.
Yeah, Furkan, can you send me that with the full screen so we can have it in full context? Thank you. Yeah.
DigitalOcean.
So that's Windows RPC. This is all starting to align, dude. This looks like direct access to the machine.
But how would he gain access directly to the machine?
Trojan would be the way. Whether through the client or through a download that you did, we don't know.
You think that he could have done it through the packs that he gifted us?
That I don't know. That would be another different method, right? So we've got an unknown here. How did he get it on your machine?
Yeah. So how was there a chance that his IP somehow just showed up on my screen?
So what that is Malwarebytes detected that there was an inbound connection from another IP address, from a server. This guy it's not his actual IP. It's likely what is called a jump box, which is if you look on, can you see my stream right now?
Let me pull it up.
Sure.
Yep, I see it.
So if this is your machine, we would expect the attacker's machine to directly interface with you, but that's not how this works. They generally have what's called a jump box in between, which is either another machine that has been compromised or a machine that they are renting in some way, usually using cryptocurrency in some way like that. Then the attacker has their machine out here. The attacker then connects to the jump box in some way, usually over a public line so that they don't trace it back to their home address or their home ISP. If they're not a dumbass, if they are a dumbass, then they use their home ISP and it becomes trivial to catch them once you start digging enough. Once the bloodhound is on your case, it just, it starts to unravel. So that jump box that we can go and look at that is actually a DigitalOcean ASN. Let's go see who owns that machine, because that machine is connecting to your machine over port 135, and we have the IP address for that. Port 135 is Windows RPC, and it looks like it's been flagged by a number of security vendors. I'd like to know what that IP address is and who owns that. That's the big question right now. Who owns this? Let's go see. This is the kind of stuff that I do when we're doing like any type of investigation, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's my assumption it's a jump box. We got to find out.
About to crack the case on stream.
Yeah, it's fun. I love doing this stuff, man. Writing and peering policy can be found at... What is this? What is this weird service? Some weird stuff in here, dude. Yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that I love looking up, because you're like, who is this? What is this? IP2 location. It looks like it's actually in the United States. Providers Tunnel Bear. Domain is digitalocean.com. Server for rent. Yeah, server for rent. 100%. Normal stuff. So likely this is a rented server from a dude that's using this for attacks. There's your attacker. There's his jump box. We have his jump box. So what they could do at this point is, now that we know the IP address that connected to your machine, they can now take that, go to DigitalOcean and say, hey, we have a box that connected to this player's machine at the time of this event, is a known attack one that shows up on VirusTotal. Who's paying for that box? You got your man. That's an option now. That wasn't an option at the beginning of this call, and now that's an option.
Yeah.
That's how this stuff happens. Really, really fast. Yep. Because somebody has to pay for the box, unless it's a compromised box, which it could be. Then you got to start over. You got to keep looking, right? So these are the types of things that you look for, is you're like, oh, there's a loose thread here. Let's pull it until we unravel this sweater. This is a piece of a thread. keep it in the basically you keep it in the back of the Batman belt, and you're like, I've got this. Let's see where that goes. I think this is really interesting, though. The fact that this actually showed up on your stream. Where is this? Firkin, were you able to get that full image? We'll take to find the VOD. I'll message in a bit. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to show you guys what this image was, just so you can get an understanding, because it's on the VOD. This is public information now.
Yeah.
But this is what showed up on your stream. And it said port 135, which is Windows RPC, IP address, which is going to be 107.170.2365, inbound, which means it's a connection to your machine from a known attack machine, specifically on there. And that known attack machine is a rented machine on DigitalOcean. Like, that's basic smoking gun shit for me. I'd be like, oh, okay, so that's the attacker's machine. Because why else would you have an inbound connection there that Malwarebytes is keying on, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's not your IP, so.
But isn't this just like a temporary solution to like the issue? Or I guess like banning the guy?
It's not a temporary solution when you arrest the dude, right?
Well, I
so
guess, yeah.
You arrest the dude, you find out the methods. You find out the methods or arrest the dude. Either. Or both, frankly, right? There's always a way to go once you find out. You want to find out who's doing this. And this is an option. Unfortunately, it looks like he made a bit of a mistake. And because he made a bit of a mistake, you got a piece of information that could lead to finding out who he is and what he's doing. And that's very useful for the people on the defense side. Every time the attacker makes a misstep, every time they screw up like that, a little piece of that thread falls out of that sweater until you know exactly who they are. It is always about the enemy making too many mistakes every time. So, I'm interested in that. Wait and see. Wait and see where that goes. Waiting to see that full image so we can have that in full context.
I'm surprised that I think Jen Burton might have like fully wiped his PC, which is maybe why it didn't pop up on his screen. Because I don't think it never popped up on his screen ever.
It could have been the moment you ran it. That means the connection was active at the time. The attacker can terminate that connection at any time. You may have just caught it while the connection was still active. You got lucky.
Yeah, and that was his mistake.
Yeah, it's his mistake.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, a lot of people don't realize is the attacks between offense and defense in scenarios like this, 100% of those are going to be a clever developer versus a clever developer. And it's basically like a standoff of who's going to screw up first. Because someone's going to make a mistake. But the problem for the attacker side is they basically, in this case, he has to be perfect every time because he's actively attacking and he has to obfuscate who he is. If he makes any mistake, like here, at any time, it can unravel the whole thing. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you track his machine from the jump box? Depends. So, like, next steps that happen from there, right, is you've got trying to find out who owns the box, trying to find out who pays for the box. Is the box actually compromised? If he is accessing that box remotely, where is he accessing it from? Does that actually lead back to his home? Does that lead back to a country that has extradition rights to the United States? If it has extradition rights to the United States, do you extradite him? Can you? What is the age of the person? Is he under 18? Right? There's so many variables that spin out of that. But really what it comes down to is who owns that box? Why is that box connecting to this dude's machine? That's a lot of questions, right? So there had to be some way for him to direct what was going on in your machine. This was likely the way that he directed what was going on in your machine. Not through the game client, through this connection over port 135 from a known attack server. That is infinitely more likely. Because you have to puppeteer the machine. It's not just going to do it on its own. You puppeteer it from range. And he's puppeteering probably over that connection, if that makes sense.
So this clarifies more so that Apex is not like in danger. It's just more so like he just got access to my PC.
I don't see evidence of Apex having RCE. It does not mean that it's impossible, but I still don't see evidence, while I do see evidence of him having direct access to your machine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it is still technically possible that Apex has RCE. I don't see evidence of it. I do see evidence of this. This is now provable with this.
Yeah.
What about the PAX? The PAX shows that he had access to telling the server to do things it shouldn't. That doesn't necessarily mean remote code execution. Servers do dumb shit all the time. Like, some of the stuff that I worked on in the past was attackers were able to change the price of certain games to 1 cent because the payment flow was not protected correctly. That doesn't mean that they have access to the, RCE on the server. It just means that the payment flow wasn't checking itself correctly. There's vulnerabilities all over the place. Weird ones, right? Dumb, but you have to figure out what the actual scope of the attacker's access really is. And if you assume and you just say, oh, this is what it is, then everybody loses. We have to prove it. It always has to be proven. Everything is very rigorous when you are doing this. You have to be very rigorous about how you are approaching these things. And you only mark things out and add things to the table based on what is provable information. Yeah.
Jen Burton just stated in my chat that he did a full reinstall of Windows before the tournament started.
Full reinstall of Windows before the tournament started.
Yeah.
You could still have persistence on the machine, but that is more interesting. So how did the infection take place? Yeah, still leaves the window open for something being wrong with Apex. If he did full reinstall of Windows, there's ways to keep persistence through Windows installs. They're a lot more advanced. You could do it. If this guy's savvy enough, he could be doing that. There are hardware level exploitation, there's ways of keeping persistence through that. There are ways of doing it. That being said, likelihood decreases slightly. Yeah. I mean, we still don't have RCE off the table for Apex. We won't until we prove the actual full way of doing this. So yeah, makes sense. In your case, we see that he had direct access to your machine. Now, the interesting part is we don't know where that access started. We don't know how the access started. So that does still leave open the possibility of something being wrong with Apex, though no proof. Still no proof. We have to wait. Yeah. We need more info. And we could get that. Just takes time. This is why when you see developers like, oh man, the developers aren't doing anything, they're doing this. You have to wait for the attacker to keep screwing up. You just keep picking at the thread. You keep pulling at the sweater. Little pieces here and there. You keep building it up into this big thing, and then you're like, now we got him, right? That's why it takes a long time. It always does. Gross playing Greyhack IRL. I mean, yeah, that's what do you think I've been doing most of my career. Yeah, investigation takes time. It does. What's up? I'm not sure about how you get access to someone's computer through just having their IP. No, you don't get access to someone's computer through just having their IP. No. Seeing the server ID is important, right? If the attacker gets the server ID and can see the player's IP through it, can't they just get access to one of the players through their IP? No. Having someone's IP address is like having their home address. It doesn't mean they're going to open the door for you. You just know where the house is, right? That's the same as having an IP address. You know where their machine is located. It doesn't mean you can get in, right? Yeah. They can DDoS you. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I find this to be interesting. I want to see where that's going. I want to see why that machine had connection to you. Especially when it's a known, it's flagged 9 of 91 security vendors on there. And I find that to be a very interesting thing, especially from VirusTotal, right? I'm going to see what the relations to this are, the community details and everything.
Hold on. I was gonna ask you too. Do you think it's weird the fact that I was one of the 2 that got hacked, but I'm the only one still banned? Like, do you think that's just do you think that Destroyer 2009 is on that side? Do you think? I guess because we don't have any way of proving that. Like, I don't know.
Are you worried that he's like an employee?
No, I'm more so worried that I feel like he somehow was able to disable my account, and EA is trying to fix it, but they can't. They told me that they're investigating my account, but wouldn't they wanted to disable Jen Burns' account too, investigate his account?
The level of access that was shown on your stream may have been higher. There may be something that they've learned from that, and they don't want it to be messed with, because you have to remember in the United States, access of another computer like that, illegal access of another computer, is a federal crime. So that is a federal crime scene that is happening there. So by locking the player out of the account, they would likely be showing this to the FBI. That's very normal. Like, while I was at Blizzard, we did that all the time. Anytime major accesses like that happen, that's an FBI problem. It's funny because people don't realize that. That's what the FBI does. That's what the Federal Bureau of Investigation does. That's part of it. Computer crime is in their purview. Like, yeah, that's normal stuff. So when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, that is a possibility. And I don't know what investigation they're doing on their end, but it is likely they're trying to preserve the state of something while they're doing an investigation, and you accessing the account could mess up the state of that, right? You have to think about it like a crime scene. I don't know if that's the case, but having all the experience that I do, that is a possibility, and it seems likely to me. Because, yeah, you'd be like, oh, yeah, you can't access it. We're still doing an investigation, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Yeah.
Let me see. So I'm looking through the account accesses on this. There's a ton of people that have flagged this. Track attacks, spyware and viruses, known ransomware list.
Someone is telling me that the chat, like, spamming the reverse DNS of the IP shows not a jump box.
Shows not a jump box? You wouldn't be able to tell that. It doesn't work that way. The jump box just means that somebody's server that they're using to do attacks. And this is being flagged by VirusTotal as a source of a number of attacks for a very long period of time. Which means it is either a jump box from our attacker, or it is a compromised machine that is being used for attacks for lots of people, which is also possible. Both suck, you know. But yeah, it's all over the place on these. You see this kind of stuff all the time. You'd be pretty surprised. Yeah, this is flagged everywhere. There's like dozens of lists that are like, this server is bad. This server attacks things. It's like, it's even on the Mirai botnet IP block list. Like, it's everywhere. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Is there a way you can send me that screenshot? Certain higher ups are like asking for it.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, if they didn't already have this is the kind of stuff, this is why we talk about these things, to make sure that this stuff comes to light, because it's going to help the devs, man. If they didn't already have this, it'll help them. Because that's very useful, incredibly so.
Thank you.
And you can give them this as well, which is the VirusTotal check for that.
Okay.
Sorry, AP2 location on that one, so they know where it is, and then VirusTotal check for that as well, which is super useful, because now you can see why this thing is flagged, and you'll see it's actually flagged by a massive amount of people on the internet for different types of attacks. So again, the attacker likely had access to this, but is he the owner, or is it a compromised machine that's used by a lot of people? Either is possible. Still a loose thread, still a mistake on the part of the attacker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your consultation fee? No, I do this shit for free. I get paid in vitamins, dude. I love this. Oh, you got the pop-up image. Let me go grab this. So this is actually on your stream. Right there. Yeah. So it popped up immediately while you were doing the scan.
Okay, that's how I didn't see it. I was looking at something like my chat, maybe, I think.
Yeah, you're probably... dude, I'll be honest with you. You're probably nervous as shit. I would be. After all that, that sucks.
No, I wasn't nervous because I know I was not at fault, so I was just... I don't know. I think it was just funny because everyone else was freaking out, personally.
Yeah.
But... yeah, I don't know. I personally didn't... Like, I know Jen got a little nervous because it looked kind of bad. Like, he was the first one to start with, obviously, but... I knew what happened from Jen Burton, so it was like I knew I was going to be next most likely, because I was debating on stream like if it does happen to me, what am I going to do? And then I was like, I don't want them to keep the game going if I leave the game, so I'm just going to force their hand to have to restart the game or like pause the game. So I just went with it. But,
yeah, makes sense. Yeah, with this, people are saying it came up about 30 minutes after you do the scan. These generally won't show up with the scan. You were still running malware bytes. So it was monitoring the connections that were happening. It was like, wait a minute, there's an inbound connection from this. So it's something to check out. With this showing up on VirusTotal like this, with so many reports of this server, it's 100% something to look into. Especially the inbound connection over 135. Like, what? It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, that was a big mistake
no, Jen, tell us, don't touch that server. Don't do that. Don't be a dumbass. Remember when I said don't be a dumbass? Yeah, that's being a dumbass. Amazing, right? So, like, the way this works is we just investigate, and then you hand it off to the police. You investigate, you say, hey, this is a loose thread, you hand it off to the police, and this builds a case. You figure out what's going on with that, right? A lot of it generally has to deal with fog of war, but I think in this case, the Apex community has a critical sort of need for information, because a lot of these people feel very lost. And most people in the industry don't know anything about security. Like most people who are players, they have no idea about security and they just think that it's magic. And they usually think that security teams are lazy as shit. They're not. They're not lazy. They just do this stuff. And as you can see, it's taken hours to figure this out and be like, oh, wait a minute. There's a loose thread. And the only reason this loose thread even presented itself is because you happened to install Malwarebytes. You happened to be streaming, and this happened to pop up as an inbound connection 30 minutes later. That's how that shit happens. You get a lucky break, you know. You have to wait, and you get a lucky break.
So it says file. Is that so? He installs something on my PC that like he creates like a way to connect to my PC with that file, or
no? In this case, this was managing the connection. That's a normal Windows file. So it's managing the port of 135 connection, whatever was going over that. We don't know what was being transmitted because you didn't have like Wireshark or anything like that kind of shit running. Yeah, it's a Windows process. That's all. Yeah, because if you go and look at port 135 uses, you can pull that up and say Windows RPC. Windows RPC allows for the display of pop-up messages, right? However, Windows RPC is also used in a number of exploit chains. I've seen that in the past, where it can be used for different types of things, where you could gain access or cause things to happen on the end machine. We see it all the time, especially with like ransomware shit. Super annoying. I'll have to talk to Gurn about it, because Gurn is the malware specialist out of the hacking team that I'm part of for DEF CON, and he knows way more about this subject than me in that regard, that realm of it. I'm investigation side. I love this shit. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of what the malware is actually doing, he's the god mode on that.
I wonder what he would say about the screenshot.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to him. I'm going to send this over to him right now. Be like, hey, Gurn. Hey, Gurn, do you want a puzzle? Want the puzzle? Yeah, I like Gurno. I said, want to puzzle. This IP popped up as inbound over RPC live in stream. Compromised user, but not sure if RC over game or directly compromised machine. Doing investigation on it live right now. Because, like, he would know much more for that. He's very skilled on that side of the house. That's not my thing. I do physical access control systems, which is breaking and entering, Wi-Fi related vulnerabilities, web related vulnerabilities, social engineering. Part of investigation side like this is the social engineering side. It's being able to take large amounts of data, pull it all together, understand the human element of that, and then use that to, you know, win the investigation, frankly. And I love this shit. It's super, super fun. Apex seems to use AWS Cloud for gaming. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of game companies do. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Yep. I would not be surprised. Why, hello. Thank you for those 20 gifted subs. Holy shit, dude. What a boss. Thank you very, very much. Is it possible the guy could have been compromised in admin or observer's account? I don't see anything that's showing that right now. My guess is that he's got some kind of a client that's modified that the server is accepting that input, which is really interesting. It could be that. It could be, but there's no evidence of it, right? There's no evidence of that happening right now. But anyway, is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
I don't think I have any more information other than that, from what I remember.
What is this? I don't think so either. I think this is pretty much it, and I've passed this on to other people. Yeah. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I think the biggest thing, man, is good on you for getting another machine. Because you just never know. And
yeah, just in case.
I'd be interested, for me, if you have a clean mode machine like this, if it doesn't happen to you again, then it seems more likely that this was a direct connection to your machine. If it does happen to you again, then the attacker has a different method, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we'll see if, you know, if we have the tournament again, because I'll be playing on this setup, so we'll see if it happens again, and if it does, then it was on a like completely brand new PC, like not even untouched.
Cool, man. So yeah, if you if you have any other information, hit me up. I'm always around. You still want to talk, I'm always around too.
I got you. I'm glad to meet you, and the conversation was good. I think
Yeah.
Kat and everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will talk to you later, dude.
Yeah, have a good one.
See ya. That is really interesting shit. That is really interesting shit. This seems like the most likely path for me, man. Seeing Malwarebytes pop up with an inbound connection like that, that smells, is what that does. That smells real bad. So that would be the way that I would start looking. And I hope that helps out there. And I hope it gives you guys a little bit more insight in how this process works. Because I think it's a good process, right? Yeah. Double thanks for the info. Anytime, dude. I love doing this kind of stuff, especially when it's like this. Especially it's all public information. Like this is from a public source. So it's not like we're revealing something secret. It's public source, right? Yeah. Please give us another rundown. Sure. So effectively, the end user, in this case, it was ImperialHal, his machine was compromised in some way. We don't know how. How is his machine compromised? So the idea that we have to think about in this case is, was your machine compromised because the game had RCE, or was your machine compromised because the attacker had direct access to your account? He downloaded Malwarebytes, and he downloaded Malwarebytes to see if his machine had any infection. It showed up none, but during that, 30 minutes later, it popped up an inbound connection from a known attack server over RPC, which is not great, right? So that lends credence to, oh, it's a direct connection. It doesn't mean that this one doesn't exist. It's still possible, but this is unknown while this is known. This is a direct connection to a known attack machine. Now, here's the real question. Is this related to the attacker, or is this a different infection? Both are possible. The timing is the same, but you have to prove it, right? You have to prove it. So now the next step is, who owns that box? There's a couple of options here in terms of who owns the box. The attacker could own the box, and they could be paying for it out of their own money. Dumbass, but possible, right? Another person could own the box, and the box could be compromised and is used as a known jump box for people inside of the hacking community, where they just have access to it, and they've been running attacks out of it, and that person didn't know. This also happens all the time. This could also be the attacker's box, but he did it correctly and paid for it with crypto or any other type of untraceable way, where it makes it hard to find him. It just gets you a little bit close and goes, well, I'm taking a slash back at you, and I didn't catch you this time. But you know I'm coming for you. That's all that does at that point. Crypto is traceable still. It can be. If you're trading only with crypto and it's not going out to real money, it's much harder to do. There's a whole process with that. So I think that's really important to understand, right? It's really important to get that. Is that there's still unknowns in here, but damn, does that give you an interesting route to look at, man? I think it really does. Two simultaneous attacks seem way too complicated. What are the odds? Guy wasn't running Malwarebytes in his machine before. It's not simultaneous attacks. It's just an inbound connection. Could be, automated. Could be on a certain timer. His machine could have been compromised for weeks. Don't know. Not sure. You never assume. So, like, in investigation, you never assume what's going on, especially with offensive security stuff. You have to prove. Anything that you're doing, it has to be proven, no matter what's happening. So if you ever have a situation where, like, I don't know, the answer is I don't know. It's not about what's likely. It's not about what I think. I don't give a shit. There's no think here. There's no likelihood. There's no assumption. It is proof or no proof. It is possibility or not possible. And we have to leave everything on the table, despite what is most likely, which is the direct connection right now, because we don't know. And you have to keep doing this. You have to keep doing this. Until you basically pare away everything that's impossible, and you're left with only what is possible. But yeah, can't rule out Stuxnet. I think you can rule out Stuxnet. I think that's an easy one to rule out. It's quite funny. How would an inbound connection on 135 be allowed inbound past firewalls upstream from the OS? Depends on what the process is, right? If it's connecting with this, I'm more interested in why this is happening, especially from that IP address. That's a known attack box. Like, it's like when you pull it up on VirusTotal, the thing lights up like a freaking Christmas tree, dude. Like, that's not what you want. That's 100% not what you want. Yeah, no, it's not great. It lights up completely like here. It's not good. But you had fun, admit it? Oh, I love doing this. You kidding me? Dude, I love doing this. It's so much fun. And it's nice to be able to set people's expectations and standards on this stuff where, like, you can't just jump to conclusions. There's a couple of things that we did get today, though. We got an IP address of an attack box that had an inbound connection to his machine. Useful. Interesting thread. The other one is finding out that the attacker requires the server ID in order to perform an attack. Also useful. These two things right here are wins. In investigation, that's a win. It's a very, very good win. Because now you have a direct piece of information that the devs might be able to obfuscate that shut down this attack. And the other one is you have an attack box that might lead you to the real ID of the attacker. Both of those things rock, dude. You want that. Yeah, 100% W's. These are W's. How do you get the server IP? You just connect, when you play the video game, you're connected to the server. Yeah, just get the IP. Server ID was actually shown inside of a menu, and it shows it up. And then also when you connect to the server, it likely shows it over packets as well. Basic shit. Normal stuff. Because if he needs to be in the game to perform these attacks, server ID. Except Hal was saying, when that attack took place before, it's because he had the server ID in the menu in the settings. So when he turned it off, they stopped getting attacked remotely. So it's likely the server ID is used in this attack. Needs to be known for the attack to take place. How can we play Greyhack what? I can't even read that. Can we play Greyhack tomorrow? Sure, we can do that. I think tomorrow is game day. Yeah, we'll play Greyhack tomorrow, because I love Greyhack. It's a fun game. But yeah, so like, if you're wondering what I've done for a living, it's this. I sit around, I gather information, I form plans, I test those plans, and I'm very regimented about how I do that, and you just can't jump to conclusions. This is why I'm directly at odds with the rest of the internet right now, where everyone's just like, it's Marcy, we know. But how do you know? It came to me in a dream. You have to prove it, man. You have to prove it. Yeah, you have to be methodical. You have to be regimented. You have to prove it. You can't give in to the emotional response. You have to know, and you have to prove. Yeah. Yep. Did you guys have fun? You learned some stuff? Germa is not behind me. I'm not looking. I'm not even terrified. Okay, I'm a little terrified. He could be there, but I'm not looking. Because if I do, then I'll find out if he is. We don't want that. It's not my left. It's not to my left. But no, I hope you guys learned some stuff. I hope you have a greater understanding for what developers have to go through, especially security teams. This is standard practice, digging through this stuff. And it's not easy to do. And to be real with you, you have to get a little lucky. This is a lucky break. This is RNG being in your favor. If he wasn't online at the time, if he would end his stream and he didn't notice that pop up, if it wasn't on stream for that to be displayed, we wouldn't have that piece. If we didn't have this talk today, he may not have thought about the fact that the server ID was involved in that. All of that stuff is wins. And that happens only through the investigation process and talking with the people who are involved. I know many times companies will want to just look at the logs. They'll want to just look at the logs, but I find more often you should talk to the player about their experience because they can reveal something that will lead you to a better investigative model. They'll lead you to something that could unlock a new door where you didn't realize that was a potential component for this, right? And I think that's important. It's super important to understand. Does that mean we should not worry as long as we don't play Apex? I don't see any problem with playing Apex right now. If you want to be extra cautious, you can, but we still don't have any evidence of RC. Does that mean it's not possible? No. Could totally be possible. But we don't have any evidence yet. So at that point, you make your own choice, right? There's no, like, recommendation of don't play the game or do play the game. Usually when something big happens, I go, wait a minute, just wait. You're fine without the game for a day. But right now, it's like, I don't know. It's on the edge. It's like, maybe there's something wrong, maybe there isn't something wrong. We still have to investigate more. We still have to find out more. What does RC mean? It means remote code execution. That means executing code on the other person's machine. If there's remote code execution inside of Apex Legends, what you get at that point is it means that you can execute code through the client onto their machine. If that was the case, why only target these two streamers? Why not target everybody? It's a little weird The targeting is broken. It's a little strange. That's why it led me to be like, I think this might be direct access to these two streamers. But how did he get access? Like, I don't know, right? So this is why we start to investigate this. Why you start, because you notice the inconsistencies. You're like, wait a minute. You know? Yeah. It's careful. It's a careful process for this. Why only those two? Why specifically those two? They're very large streamers. They're some of the largest streamers in all of the community, right? So you talked about, you learn from that. You learn from that. Maybe he's a bit careful. Maybe. But maybe also he doesn't have the ability to do it. You can't tell. But now you're building a profile of what is possible and what is not possible. What is probable and what is improbable. Then you build your decision tree. We know somebody had direct access to his machine from that IP address. We know that that may not be the way that it got access. We have two options. We have one option that looks shinier, right? Why did Defender not block connection? Don't know. Don't know what his settings were. Not sure. With Malwarebytes blocking it, that's pretty interesting, though, especially with a known attack machine like that. Like, if you didn't look at this machine in VirusTotal, dude, like, it's real mad. It's just real mad. It pops up on all the angry things. You're like, oh, that's not great, you know? Yeah. And then we look through the details, and it's literally like every one of us flagged it as an attack machine, known ransomware, attack machine, botnet, IP block list, attack machine, threat list. Like, yeah. So, pretty interesting. Yeah, it's just suspicious. It ends itself in like, hey, this is suspicious. I think, to be honest with you, this is the biggest win right now, to me. This is the biggest win to me. This is a potential, because you're like, hey, we have this really suspicious shit. That's a little bit weird. But this is a direct understanding of the method of the attack. That is way more interesting to me. The fact that he needs the server ID, that he likely needs the server ID, way more interesting. Way closer to fixing the problem than this one is. This might lead you to the dude. This does lead you to a way of fighting back. Yeah. Is Malwarebytes worth downloading that? It's great for spot checks. Windows Defender defends you against 99% of everything, right? It's great. Yes, for anybody out there that's like, I'm going to make a decision based on security, based on the things that I saw today, don't make rash decisions when it comes to computing. Don't make rash decisions when it comes to security. You should research these things. Don't make a decision just because you saw something. Make a decision because you saw something, you looked more into it, you realize fully and understand it, and then made an informed decision. And definitely don't listen to parrots screaming that the sky is falling all over social media, because there's far too much of that right now, frankly. Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. Nice talk. I was listening to it. I was getting all fired up. You can see a few messages I may or may not have sent you.
Oh, yeah, no, I see it now. Yeah, so you have a take on the server ID. I'm interested in that because to me, if the attacker needs the server ID to form the attack, it's likely that the server is saying, there's like some kind of a brokering server or some kind of structure behind that that's like, hey, I need to target this attack to this server ID to execute this command. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So this is what I'm thinking, is that he did talk about, he thinks there was other times that the thing was crashed without him knowing. And you got to remember, Hal's a killer. He's going to show up in the kill feed. If this guy is trying to stream snipe, trying to get into games when he doesn't have direct access to know where he's at, he just needs to look at the kill feed. So he could kill the server that way, knowing he's in the correct server. So what this says to me, at least, this is kind of my guess, is that while he had the server IDs up, he had the ability to search through and grab this kind of information. I'm not convinced there's some sort of just like, hey, I'm on this server packet. My convincing right now is that he needs the ID because there's no way to search for a player on what server they're currently on that he has access to. So there's hundreds, if not thousands of machines running these Apex games right now up in the cloud. And he has to know which one is Hal on, and there is no way to find that without direct information.
100%. And that server ID will allow him then to form the command, the packet, that would then be sent to the server and be like, I need to hit this server ID to spawn in all the bots. Or whatever it's going to be.
And I'm still so as far as the bots go, I'm I mean, there must either they have some sort of testing thing that they haven't released yet, or they have it as some sort of holdover from Kings Canyon way back in the day when they had bots actually spawn into the game. But I have this like, to me, it just seems odd that he can spawn in bots unless if they have some old code that he can trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, he has access in such a way that allows him to like enable said feature. This
is why I was worried that he had server side access in some way.
Yeah,
like he had more access than than you would want. Obviously, there's a couple potentials there that I look into where it's like you have the server, you either have him with full server access, right, where he just has the ability to do things on it, where he can generate things and do whatever the hell he wants and has full access to do anything that he wants to. You have the potential for an employee account or an employee access at some level. And that's even scarier because there was just layoffs, which means that there are some components that could be left over, right?
Yep.
Where they're unmonitored or unmanaged in a way that happens after layoffs. Welcome to hell, right? This is how that works.
Can you get one more box with an X in it?
I was waiting for you to say that. I pulled it out of your mind. I could hear it in my head before you even said it. So then you've got your server, you've got your employee, and then the last one is the client. Unfortunately, no X for you. In this case, we've got the client, and if the client is able to send packets to the server, malformed in a way where the server accepts this, or there's a buffer overflow, or if there's any other type of vulnerability that happens from that, then the server could accept those commands as if he had that level of privilege, which he doesn't. That could also be possible. I see these things all the time in games. All the time. They're very, very common issues, and that sucks, right?
So I could imagine that, because I'm just trying to walk through how would you program this in, right? Because this has to be in some level, it's an intent. This is not rocket writing in Fortnite where it's an accident of the physics. This is a programmed in feature of the server that the client needs to be able to tell the server, hey, you need to behave in such a way. Can you please do this? To me, this actually sounds like they have some sort of experimental set of commands in which QA or some, game testing, something can spawn in extra behavior that doesn't exist normally.
I doubt it for one reason.
Really? I'm curious about this.
So I doubt it for one reason. The attacker said that he has spent 4 years developing these attacks in another video. My guess, this dude found a buffer overflow. He's writing arbitrary code to the server. Would be the way that I would do this. That seems likely to me. Doesn't mean it is, but it seems likely to me. And in that case, all he'd have to do is say, I have all these dummy accounts over on my side. I'm running a botnet of dummy accounts. Just activate all the connections to these. And you would just have to activate them to the user IDs for each one of those. Say all these users that are currently waiting, queue them on that server. You see what I'm saying with that? You wouldn't really even need special commands.
They're not real users. They're just like bots, right? So they're coming in as like test runs. They have them in the firing range and all that. They get names.
Oh, are they actually like
there's
bot
real
accounts?
programmed in bots that runs that. Yeah.
Okay. I thought he was running them on his machine and they were just running at the dude and punching because that's like super basic bot behavior. If it's a built-in thing with the game, then that's way more likely it's QA commands. Yeah. Stuff like that.
It says their accounts. I mean, they could very well be accounts. I'm just trying to figure out how that even runs, right? On any singular computer, right? 40 instances of running
my man's never
Apex.
My man's never played EVE Online.
I did not play EVE Online, but I did hear this the greatest thing ever existed
headless. What they would have is headless clients. Right, so headless clients with automated movement, and you could have hundreds of clients on one machine. Even a shitty machine can do it, and there's no graphics playing, so that because they're headless, so you just get a shitload of bots just doing it. You just get text feed out. You can have as many of those as you want, frankly. Yeah, just send packets at that point. Easy stuff. So I think it's really interesting because I don't know the method of connect. I am worried that he has something like a buffer overflow because if you're spending 4 years developing a cheat tool suite, it is likely that you have found a vulnerability that you've built off of from that, right? And that buffer overflow either hasn't been detected or doesn't exist because he's got a different method, right?
Which one do you think is more plausible? This buffer overflow, being able to write code and all that, going undetected for 4 years, or that he has just simple access? He just has access to something more deeper. He is an employee and or has an employee by some sort of whatever relationship that allows him to do it. Not saying some sort of nefarious or even like mutual relationship, just some way to be able to access it.
See, the thing for me is that's full fog of war. We have no indication that either one is more likely than the other. And we know that either of those could be likely, either of those could be possible, but we have no thread in that direction. The only thing that I've gained from today is we know that the server ID is involved in targeting the victim. We know that there was an IP address that connected to one of the victim's accounts over RPC over port 135. Both of those are very interesting. The IP address goes to the FBI, frankly. That's an FBI investigation. They figure that shit out, find out what the hell's going on there, because that's what the FBI does.
Yeah.
Normal basic shit. The server ID, that goes to Respawn. They figure out, hey, how is the server ID involved in this attack? Can we find any commands that were sent that involve the server ID? Because that is how the victim is targeted. And if they can obscure that in some way where the players can't find out about it, their client never knows because the client is a dummy and shouldn't know that information, they might be able to cut this thing off at the head, frankly.
Yeah, because I mean, they're probably using UDP. For those that don't know, UDP it's a connectionless. It's a stateless connection, meaning that they just have two open ports that are sending packets back and forth. It gets gets either way. It's not like a TCP handshake, so you really actually don't need any server information other than here's effectively your URL or wherever you're connecting to. Here's the port you need to connect to. Go and send sockets. And so server ID is actually kind of a useless feature unless if they accidentally put it in as part of their protocol. Which is fully possible, right? Because usually they try to limit player movement and everything to a single UDP thing. It's just like a controller with on-off, so you know whether a button's being pressed down or not being pressed down, so it can kind of mimic the behavior on the server. You could imagine that they would actually put that in the protocol itself.
I do like the style
of the...
It just seems strange. Yeah, it does seem strange. It does. I will say, as an aside, I actually enjoy the style of the attacker. The reason why is, have you looked into his name?
Destroyer 2009.
Yeah, so Destroyer 2009, if you actually look that up, that's a movie from 2009 called Destroyer. And it's a man, the description for it is a man navigates through a future of overwhelming security. Dude's chosen his name. Ooh. He knows exactly what he's doing. He absolutely knows how to rip this system apart. He's become an expert in this by doing it for 4 years. Guy knows what he's doing. I can respect that, right? Doesn't mean that I condone it, but I can respect it. And I've had... Throughout my career, I've seen this many, many times. You're like, wow, dude's got a little bit of style there. Too bad he's going to jail, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, you can have people like that are cool as shit, and they're just on the wrong side of the fence. And I'm sad because you could have bounty programs to fix this kind of a thing if the guy had just gone in the right direction, just slightly in the right direction,
So, I don't know if bounty programs could have ever fixed the person right. There's always, me personally, I didn't stop really drinking until it became legal for me to drink. Some of us tend to just keep going because the risk is what we're searching for, not necessarily the thing itself.
Yeah.
But follow-up question.
Sure.
Is there a way that EA can turn this into something in which works out for the both of them? Like, has there ever been situations or precedent where a company's just like, not only we're not going to press charges, we're going to help you defend any civil charges from the government if the government chooses to proceed, and can we get you on our team?
I don't think they can do that because it's a federal crime. He's violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986.
But doesn't somebody have to press charges?
The federal government
does. As
far as I know, the federal government presses charges on that. That's a federal crime. So, like, the company doesn't have any say in that. A state wouldn't have any say in that. And it also depends on what country he's from, right? So let's say that he's from a NATO country or a country that is friendly to the United States. He'd get extradited at that point if they allow extradition in whatever country that he's in. And he'd have to face federal penalties here in the United States. There's all kinds of different stuff that goes along with that goes into the legal process. But violating federal law, there's very few... I don't think a company can do anything about that. And people are claiming that he's from Belarus. He can claim he's from Belarus. He might be, right?
And don't trust words coming out of the guy's mouth. That's like step number one.
as much as you guys are all saying he's from Belarus, no, he said he's from Belarus. Did the man give you his ID? Like, what has this whole talk been about? It's been trust but verify, right? And you're just like, oh, he's from Belarus. He said so. And I believe him. We
talked about this for 2 hours yesterday, and you guys still are falling for it. Come on.
Chat's memory is very short. Very short. Yeah. So, like, you don't know.
Is this the 7 brain cells that you've been telling me about?
His claim is that he's from Belarus. Prove it, right?
Yeah.
You have to prove it. This is something you put on the side. You get an allegedly. Yeah. You get an allegedly right there. So you put that over on the side, his identity, he may be from Belarus. He may have a jump box. That jump box IP address, that's something to give over the FBI. It's part of investigation. He is using a server ID as a targeting mechanism for the end users.
Yeah.
So now you start to pick this apart. Who here has ever heard of Maltego? Who's here has heard of Maltego?
I don't know Maltego. I got one more thing on server ID that I'm just kind of bounced around my head. I know a lot of targeting, especially like, just working in a big company that I do. If you can get a hold of these UUIDs that target something, you can actually go directly to the machine. So maybe the server ID is really, truly just a way to target the machine by IP address.
I would guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Either through the game client or otherwise.
EA.com/server ID, you get to go.
So Maltego I actually use quite frequently, but I use it a lot for OSINT data collection and dispersal for this. If you want to use something, because Maltego is quite expensive, I'm going to give you guys Obsidian.md. Obsidian is like a version of this where you can set up nodes, and it's free, and then you set those nodes up, and you can write text with this. This is very similar in visuals to this. So you're like, oh, this is a note. You write all of your information. This allows you to see how different things are connected to each other in a way that is both visual and data-oriented. I know you want me to use LogSec. I know you do. I'm recommending Obsidian to people because it's very useful. Yeah, it's free too. It's free, great. So like,
I like Obsidian. It's a great note tool.
Yeah, it's great for notes, and it's great for tying concepts together. What you're seeing here is me putting a bunch of shit on the whiteboard because, to be honest with you, I haven't been hired to do this. I'm doing this because it gives me vitamins and it gives you guys a little bit of perspective, right? I have no intention of traveling all the way out to the end of this investigation, in a way where I get hired by the company or anything like that. It's like, okay, this is interesting. Let's look into this a little bit. Let's get a little bit of information, show people how the process works, right? And like, maybe it'll help resolve it. Maybe this gave the company a couple of little threats. Maybe they already knew these things. Either way, you got some perspective, which is important to me. Do you want to talk to Destroyer? That might be fun to do, to be honest with you, if the attacker comes and talks to me. Although I'd be real with you, I doubt that he would. Because there are situations like that where it's like, dude knows dude, right? He might think that's an okay thing to do. He may take precautions to hide himself when he does such a thing. And he may like the attention, frankly. But to be real with you, talking directly to the attacker, while interesting, usually won't reveal much. It gives them a soapbox to say their manifesto. It gives them a soapbox to reveal what they want in the world, but it doesn't usually give you very much information on how to find or stop their methods. Usually. Because you can't trust anything that they say. It's the same as client-server relationship. The server should never trust the client. You should never trust your opponent. Ever. So I'm more interested in watching the methods and looking for inconsistencies in access. Like this. You just don't trust it, right? Have you seen the video where Mandy is talking to him? I did. I did see the video where Mandy was talking to him, and it was very clear that he was not interested in kind of changing his ways in any way. I think Mandy was trying to appeal to his emotional side. I'd be like, hey, this is morally wrong, which doesn't change much, right? And on the other side, he was just like, no, I just want to cheat at the game. I just want to do this, which I understand very deeply. I am a hacker. I have been for many years. I'm part of that community. We like to solve puzzles. The dude's solving a puzzle. His puzzle happens to be detrimental to others. But he's solving a puzzle. And the puzzle's the only thing that matters. I get that. I get it. It's not great, though. Do you think he'd do it again? Likely, yeah. Most definitely.
The hard part is that, I think that it's very easy to kind of like morally or ethically kind of talk yourself into, well, I'm not like directly taking from somebody. I'm not actually like taking money and all this kind of stuff. So therefore what I'm doing is, it's gray area. I'm not necessarily being a bad person and all that.
Yep.
And from his little talk, the challenge is truly the greatest part about it all. And it's shocking because, we all do the same thing, right? I'm sure you have a bunch of engineers, a bunch of game programmers in your chat, that it's the actual act of learning and going through it and the discovery of becoming better at your craft that is way more interesting than almost the thing itself.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it's one of the things that I talk to people when, I'm like, oh, I'm a hacker. This is the stuff that I do. People are like, I want to become a hacker. And I was like, okay, here's all of the information for you. Here's how you do it. Because all of that at that point is, do you want to become a hacker or do you just think hackers are cool? Yeah. And most people just think hackers are cool. The people who end up going down the route and doing it, there's like an internal need to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
And like, I have that. It's why I compete at DEF CON. I love to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, don't blame me. I did programming competitions for a long time. Exact same thing. The ability to try to solve some stupid toy problem faster than somebody else.
It turns you into a good programmer too. It Turns you into an amazing
Yeah.
programmer as well, because you're like, I need to get better at this. It's a drive. It's a drive thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a course? No, I give all my information out for free. You'll find very quickly in the hacking community, there's two kinds of general people that are in there. Ones who will give you everything and be like, here, learn, come join us. And ones that cage off and be like, no one must know. The ones who cage off and no one must know, they fall away because they don't collaborate with others. I used to be part of Council of Nine. So Council of Nine was the group that I competed with originally at DEF CON 23 and 24. And we won both years for cryptography. And then I joined the Psychoholics, who I'm a part of now. And we won at DEF CON 25 for telefreaking, which is phone hacking. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A couple of years back, I listened to the Kevin Mitnick
Oh,
Ghost
yeah.
from the Wires book. Very, very, very exciting. Because
It's
I am
yeah.
by far no hacker. I may know how programming and memory and all those things work, but I am
You're
not on the hacking side.
To be real with you, you're a better programmer than I am, but I'm a better hacker than you.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I know how protocols work. I can tell you why things work.
That's the big difference. That's the big difference between it. Programming and hacking are very different skill sets. They really are.
Yeah.
Hackers.
They're almost islands onto themselves.
They are. They're 100% islands. And hacking is generally seen as a prestige class to IT. You learn a bunch of IT skills, and then you're like, well, how can I break them? What if I took the remote apart and put it back together backwards? What would happen, right? And you start to learn those types of things of like how you can do those things and like how you can manipulate everything. Like what's the worst thing you could possibly do, you know? And you play around with that and you get better at it. That's the whole idea for it. So spent many years doing this.
I think this is a good kind of like little highlight note right here, which is that it doesn't really matter what kind of technical route you wish to take. The only real answer is that you got to put in a lot of time and effort to get to that prestige class.
You have to put in a huge amount of effort. It's not a get rich quick. It's not a I'm going to be a cybersecurity expert next year. It's a I want to do this. I want to devote to this, and you time dump it, dude. The skill is a time dump. You spend all your time in it. What was a movie this guy's name is inspired by? Directly what his name is. Yeah.
Destroyer from 2009.
Destroyer from the year 2009. So, guy's got a little bit of style. He chose his handle. And he chose his handle specifically because of his hacking prowess, right? So that means that there's usually a couple of reasons that somebody chooses a handle like that. It is likely not his first rodeo, right? He's probably doing this before. I'd be interested if at the beginning of this chain, if he still had that handle, because if he did, then he chose to evolve into this handle and do that, right? Pretty abnormal. Usually people don't choose like a hacker handle in the beginning, right? They usually don't. And it could also just be a coincidence but that's one kick-ass coincidence, frankly. If it's the movie that's about a dude navigating through a world of security and he's a freaking hacker and he just randomly chose the name, I'm going to shit myself. That's wild.
He's actually just a 15-year-old who was born in 2009. He's just like, Destroyer's a great name.
Like, if that's the case, dude, I was like, wow, that's freaking rad. He just chose an edgelord name and it turned out to be way deeper. That'd be funny as hell. It's possible, too.
What's the name of that thing where you have a name and it actually becomes your destiny?
Yeah, there you go.
What is it? There's a specific name for that where you're like, your last name becomes your destiny.
Yeah.
I know chat will say it here in just 1 second, but that'd be way more funny if that's what happened. An aptonym, that's right.
It totally could be, because you can't really assume anything. You'd be like, wow, that's cool. And it's easy to make that assumption because you're like, dude, that fits really well. That fits really well. But also, like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like that. Maybe it's just an edgelord. I don't know.
Yeah. Nominative determinism or an aptonym. There's like 6 different names for it, which is also funny, but
manifest destiny. Yeah, exactly.
That's slightly different, but we'll give it to you.
How's the story not wanted to interview with Pirate? It's more fun for me this way. I know that's weird, but like, you've given me a puzzle. And if you talk to the direct other side, it's going to give me misinformation, not information that helps me lead to the source. You have to find things that they didn't expect you to find, not things they were prepared to give you. Things they were prepared to give you are always shit. As an example of this, I remember a long time ago when I was trying to find this guy, and he was really good. He's the only other person I've ever not been able to find. There was one guy in my whole career I couldn't find, ever, out of all of them. And this dude would buy copies of games to the middle of a forest in Vermont for physical delivery using stolen credit cards with the tag of basically eat shit in the description with his tagline, knowing that we were looking for him. It was obnoxious. Like, that dude knew. So anytime you're getting information directly from the attacker, you kind of have two options there, right? One option is, why are you trusting that? It's obviously prepared information. And the other one is, dude's ready to get caught. That's the other one. Sometimes they're ready to get caught. If the dude starts acting out a whole bunch and they're just like, well, the puzzle's over now, you have to understand, this guy's going to get to a point where he's beaten the level. And it becomes really boring. Where do you go from there? There's no up. The level's done. The puzzle's solved. He hit some of the two largest streamers in mid-game. That's the end credits, yeah. At that point, you're like, well, either I stop doing this or I just do it until I get caught, right? Now, Lizard Squad was lame. Those were just kids that were using a bot stressor. They weren't hackers. They were kids with a gun. That's what they were. Which is depressing, but the reality of the scenario. Yeah, not hackers. They literally bought Lizard Stressor, which was a tool, and then used it against, skids. Script kids. It's shitty. It's more terrifying? Not really. It's less terrifying. People who are knowledgeable about their attack methods like this is way better. Way more interesting. Or he goes up a bigger level, shutting down the game, etc. You have to, at that point, you have to determine that he has the capability of doing that. We have no indication that he does. That's it. And that's one of the biggest things. So yeah, do you want to tell the audience about yourself? Because I don't know if all of my community knows who you are or what you do.
Oh, goodness. Well, hey, thank you so much. But hey, first of all, I realized, look, this is the first time we've ever gotten even a chance to chat and say hello.
Yeah.
So super flattered to do that in front of, I don't know, however many thousands of people tuning in.
A lot of dudes, bunch of nerds.
Yeah. A lot of goblins. Well, no, thank you so much. I totally didn't mean to, cramp your style or jump in here. But,
no, dude. I think this is really important to talk about. It's actually one of the things I've been bringing up on stream and interviewing with people throughout this and doing a little bit of investigation because so few people understand that devs actually care in security situations. They just think devs are lazy or that there's not enough going on, and they have to see it just slightly behind the curtain to get a little bit of perspective to change the way that they feel about it. That's an important thing for me. So yeah, no, super happy to have you on.
Well, sweet. Just for a little bit of background context, hi, hey, hello. My name's John Hammond. I do some YouTube and content creation while I can to share a whole lot of cybersecurity education, a lot more hands-on sort of practical stuff on the keyboard. For my day job, I am working kind of as a cybersecurity researcher at a managed security platform. So that's a lot of fun. It feels like, hey, we're in the front lines, we're in the trenches, trying to keep up with hackers and malware. And I find myself chasing a whole lot of either vulnerabilities or stuff that shakes up the internet. And it's really wild when I think the traditional gaming world and maybe the cybersecurity world start to blend a little bit. When there are new, vulnerabilities, it's either in Counter-Strike or Minecraft or stuff that we can start to talk and, I don't know, bring these two together at the same table for. But with that, I thought of you because I know you and Prime were chasing this just as well.
Yeah.
And I did my best. I've been out on travel the past couple of days, but got home and was like, okay, we got to turn out a video because, again, everyone is asking. Everyone's wanting to learn a little bit more about this. And it's funny. I think now, just even hours or so after I tried to put that out, I think there is a couple new learnings and some cool things we might be able to dig into and chat about. But
definitely,
I don't know, is that enough context and background, or is there more you think we should drill down into to kind of keep things cruising?
Yeah, I think that, and then also for anybody who didn't know, basically Apex Legends had this event the other day. They did a tournament, and two of the largest streamers in the event got hacked live on stream. And there was a claim that this was over remote code execution, and I've been investigating it, and while everyone is claiming it's remote code execution, I have not seen any evidence of this. It is possible that it's that, but we don't have an exploit path. And generally what you're looking for is you're looking for what is called a proof of concept, which is this is the exploit, this is how the exploit works, now we can prove that that vulnerability is real, right? And in this case, it's just a lot of people claiming it and kind of parroting each other and saying, oh, this is what it is, this is what that is. But remote code execution is incredibly dangerous, insanely so. So jumping the gun and saying that that's the case, I find to be, well, kind of foolish and dangerous, right? Because you're drawing a lot of negativity towards the game without having proof or evidence of the claim, and I don't think that is good. So as we started looking into this, we started pulling out other information, and what I have seen so far is that a little bit of weird misconfiguration. Did you see that yesterday? We were talking about that.
Yeah. I dropped a little mention of that
Mhm.
in the video. Is that, hey, that router or internal port just seems odd to me that would
Yep.
be getting an inbound communication. Um,
That's why I was so worried about it. I was like, that is 100% something to check up on. I was like, this is very strange because when I looked at the two accounts, like the two players that got hacked on stream, your first indication is not RCE. That's not the first thing you jump to. You jump to, oh, you have two individually compromised machines, especially because they're high value targets. These are major streamers, right? It makes sense that someone would break into the machine and wait for the middle of the major event to cause a scene, right? That's a normal thing to do. So I didn't jump to the RCE conclusion. That's why I went and reached out to the players and I was like, let's find out your machine. And we saw that inbound connection. Thankfully, that inbound connection is just a scanner, right? Just a normal scanner that's on the internet. It gets flagged all the time. That's why we were like, hey, let's look into this. And that scanner, as funny as it is, the weird part is not that it scanned. The weird part is that his machine received the scan and detected the inbound, which means something is wrong with the configuration for his router. I'm wondering if it's like a port forwarding thing where he's just forwarding everything. So his computer's basically just open on the internet. I don't know. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
we were
There's
answering
something.
about that just a
Yeah.
moment ago. It was like, look, is this something that, hey, anyone might have just tried to set and forget? Hey, I just want to get into streaming. I want to get into gaming. And then you just hit the easy button, allow everything.
Yep.
And that's totally reasonable, I think, for
Yeah, I
don't
think
know,
it
maybe
is.
folks that aren't as maybe in the know or just not as cognizant. So I think that's a possible reality, but I guess we'll have to check in with Hal.
Yeah, so his router would forward the scan on that port, and then his PC would get the request, which is why it said inbound connection. That's why I was like, what the hell is this? Because that's not normal, right? In any normal network setup, you'd never see that. That's why it was immediately like a red flag, like, let's look into this and find out what the hell is going on, because it's crazy, right? It's a weird thing to see. So that puzzle is solved. I don't think that's a danger, but it does show misconfiguration of network, likely, right? The other one that was more interesting to me was the requirement of the attacker to have the server ID. Did you see that the other day when we were talking about it?
I had caught some breadcrumbs on it, but I guess I thought just sort of naturally that makes the most sense in my mind, so it knows what game lobby to target. Like, hey,
Yes.
the one that you're in, hey, we've got at least the fingerprint, we've got enough signature to know that's the server that we're going to go after, and that again
Yep.
is where that server ID plays its part.
So the IP address, I'm going to put that down as effectively worthless. We don't need anything with that. The server ID, though, the server ID is incredibly interesting because anecdotally, what Hal said yesterday, ImperialHal said that he had in the menu, it showed the server ID. And when he removed that, the attacker stopped being able to attack the lobbies he was in remotely. The hacker actually had to be in the game with them in order to do it, which means the hacker likely needs the server ID to target the attacks. That's a really interesting find because it means that he probably doesn't have direct server access, because then he might have access to all the other things and be able to detect where players are and everything else that goes on with that. I'm still leaning towards this being a client that is sending malformed packets up, like modified packets, that is then able to direct the server. But we still don't have proof. There's no proof of that, unless you have something.
So I have some links that might be worthwhile for you, and I don't
Send.
think you've got a chance to take a look at them yet.
I
But
have not.
before we do dive in, can I ask you, because I'd love to get your opinion here, and this is weird. I know this sounds like such a silly question, but I think it gets into a little bit of semantics or just sort of a vague definition understanding of how do you capture remote code execution? Because me coming from the traditional cybersecurity sense, that means, okay, you can run commands on the target. You can copy files, manipulate the file system, invoke programs and applications. But when you put that in the gaming world, I think there is, not to say a misinformed interpretation, but some folks might say, oh, well, I can do things within the game client and therefore it is remote code execution, whether that's JavaScript or I don't know, some engine locally, but that's not strictly remote code execution in
No.
my mind. What do
No,
you think? Am I yeah.
No, I think you're completely correct about that. For me, it really comes down to what level of privilege access do you have, right? So if you have remote code execution, you have everything on that side, right? Because you can execute any code, you can do anything that you want to do at that point. You can move laterally through the network, anything like that. In this case, say like a single packet was like this. Let's say that you could send a malformed packet to crash the server. Just sending one packet. That's not remote code execution. Let's say that you could send a modified request to make a game 1 cent instead of $10. It's not remote code execution. You actually have to be executing code on the target. You have to be able to write code. And that could be a number of different ways to accomplish that, right? You can get that through buffer overflows. You can get that through like direct access to the machine. There's all kinds of different ways to do that. So that's generally the way that I see it, even in the gaming world, if that makes sense.
No, I'd agree. Denial of service, hey, maybe crashing an application or service isn't remote code execution.
Nope.
It gets, I don't want to say messy, but I feel like there is a certain amount of nuance, and I think that's totally important to dig into. So.
I agree. Yeah, I super agree. All right, let's see.
Here, I'll send you the links if you'd like to start perusing, and I guess I can do some maybe top cover. I realize it starts to get into a whole lot of, I don't know, how can we make this approachable and accessible and understandable for folks that might not know all the lingo?
I can just break it down. That's easy.
Yeah.
You
do a phenomenal job at it. You do such a wonderful thing.
So there's currently no confirmed news. This is put out by Anti-Cheat PD, right? Funny name, by the way.
This is following their past sort of, hey, alert in the quote tweet way back on the 17th. Yeah. So
they said there's currently an RCE exploit, and I was like, stop doing this. I told everyone, you need to stop saying this because you are using this wrong. Like, we have not confirmed this. No one has confirmed this. To state that is absurd, right? It's like yelling fire in a crowded room. If you don't actually see the fire, if you just heard someone else say fire and then you repeat it, you look like a dumbass, right? That's exactly what's happening with this. Everyone just started shouting fire. None of them actually saw the fire. That's the problem there. So there's currently no confirmed news if the potential RCE is due to vulnerabilities from a game source or EAC. Even though there is a response from EAC, we would recommend that we wait for a response from Respawn EA confirming the source of this incident. Even then, I still wouldn't even say it's if the potential RCE is, it's not even, we don't know what it is. There's some kind of vulnerability. If Respawn deployed a security update, but has not yet released any info about the issue, we've also confirmed the same hackers involved who spawned bots in streamers' games last month. That is true. As far as we know, that is correct. Or somebody using their same name. You never know, right? The hackers themselves claim that they did not install harmful malware on the affected streamers' PCs. Now, that's an interesting one. The hackers themselves claim that they did not install harmful malware on the affected streamers' PCs. If they didn't do harmful malware, one of the things that I was thinking of very early on, you had one player that had a UI element pop up, right? You had another player that didn't have a UI element pop up. But the one player that had the UI element pop up, where it's like the whole menu, it said vote Putin on it because they had put an extra joke in there. I'm wondering if that whole thing was just a joke image, where that's not even a real image. He popped it up to make the streamer look bad. If that makes sense.
No, it's fun. We've got more breadcrumbs and puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
If you wanted to drill down into the next link and a couple stuff that I think is emerging, I feel like this article released maybe an hour or so ago. But the kind of thread that ties those two together is just those screenshots even themselves. Look, hey, just reaching out and chatting with that fella on Telegram. There's no secret. Okay, cool. We know their potential username, and Destroyer 2009 is that alias and handle that they want to go by all the time. So there's nothing stopping us from just reaching out.
Yeah, this is interesting. Virus is bad, harmful, and one can easily get into trouble because of them. No viruses will be uploaded for usual players and streamers. We are jokers, not clowns. Good. I love that quote. We are jokers, not clowns.
Line.
That's a funny line. Tonight we made quite a, in Apex. Hope you guys managed to check it out if anyone is interested. Okay, so no viruses in that case. No viruses is what they're claiming. The way that I always feel about it is when a target, when an enemy, an opponent, is making a claim, you can't believe it out of hand. You know what they're saying, but it doesn't mean it's true. They're your opponent. That's the point. And to believe it out of hand is fine. We'll put that in a potential. They said no viruses, right? But now we have to prove that claim, right? We have to prove that they're not using malware of any kind. We have to prove they're not using a virus or anything like that. But they've made the claim. So it sits over there in the corner. It's like, cool, you said that. In Maltego, I'd usually just pop it up into like a node. So let's see here. Let's look at the second link. I spoke to the hacker behind Apex Legends hacks. This is from Lorenzo. I don't know that last name. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah,
I'm American and I only know English and not very well.
This is the juicy one in my mind because hey, he's a reporter, and Lorenzo, I'd like to consider him a good friend. Hey, we're looking at each other across the internet airwaves over on Twitter, and I send him a few messages like, dude, this is phenomenal. Thank you so much for shedding some light on this, and it makes complete sense. Like, go ask that actor again with the Telegram screenshots. There's nothing wrong with just seeing what tea are they willing to spill. I don't know if that's social engineering by any means. We wouldn't.
You can't believe it, but yeah.
It's
always a thing to like go and reach out to them. I would have done it yesterday, but I've been up for 48 hours straight. So I was like, nah, I'm good. It's time to go to bed. And then I overslept today, which is quite funny. But yeah, with this, the thing that's really interesting about this is, you know, he says he did it just for fun. We already knew that. Like, if you watched any of the videos that you had seen of this guy, it was very clear he was doing it like for the lulz, normal basic shit that you ever see. He was a player of the game. He wanted to get better at the game, and he wanted to hack the game. And then, you know, he found ways to mess with people, and he just plays pranks on people, and that's kind of the thing. He's never doing anything that is like directly horrific to the game. You know, he's just bothering high-value targets, and that's like a pretty normal thing. Quote, they know how to patch it, he told me. I wouldn't be surprised that Respawn knew how to patch it. It's something that a lot of people don't realize. Just because you know how to patch something out doesn't mean you can easily. It means that there's a cost associated with that. There's time associated with that. There's infrastructure that has to be managed. There's employees that have to be managed. And you don't have a 24/7 team either. So just because you can doesn't mean it's insane. It's not insanely painful to do so. It may take a while, right? The possibility versus, you know, how long does this take? So let's go to the next one on this. Is this the only thing on this? Or is it the whole article?
Click into the TechCrunch URL or the link that they include there, the article itself, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
On
Sunday,
sure if you pulled it up.
Yeah, I've got it here. So on Sunday, the world of video games was shaken by hacking and cheating scandal. During a competitive esports tournament of Apex Legends, a free-to-play shooter video game played by hundreds of thousands of players daily, hackers appealed to insert cheats into the games of two well-known streamers. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that was just a visual thing. I've felt that since the beginning, too, because it's just silly, right? Effectively hacking the players mid-game. The instance forced the organizers of Apex Legends Global Series Tournament, which had a $5 million total prize pool, to postpone the event indefinitely. That sucks so hard, due to the competitive integrity of the series being compromised. That's such a black eye, too, because you don't just have an event going on, you have dozens, hundreds of people working on this, dude. And the whole community, and in the public, like directly in the public. It's just, you know, it's a neck punch, dude. It's really rough. It's really, really rough. As the mid-game hacks were underway, the game's chatbot displayed messages on screen. That's correct. So for Destroyer 2009 and Random, it looks like they got the name wrong. It's R4 instead of R4A.
Oh,
I thought
extra A in there.
Yeah. Random, you know. In an interview with TechCrunch, the hacker Destroyer 2009 took credit for the hacks, saying that he did it just for fun, and with the goal of forcing Apex Legends developers to fix the vulnerability he exploited. That's pretty common. So if you'll find this happens a lot throughout the hacking community, is if you find a bug, sometimes people will report it and nothing gets done because it just it's a big company. Shit gets missed. And so they take it upon themselves to make it worse. Or they just exploit it because they want it fixed. And they think it's funny to do so at the same time. Neither of those things is appropriate. Don't exploit it, you know.
Can I dance with you on this
Sure.
a little bit? Because this is kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it draws a slight line in between what might be, I don't know, antics, again, the gaming world versus the strict cookie cutter, a frame around the cybersecurity spot. Because for a traditional threat actor or adversary or ransomware gang, look, the goal is money. And they want to hit as much stuff as possible and milk it. And I feel like for this scenario and probably others that echo in that gaming scene, it's like, hey, we just thought it was funny. Like we wanted the memes, we wanted to troll, and we did it for the lulz. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I totally agree that seems to be more of not to say a motive, but a component of the two worlds.
I think it's a very common thing inside of games. Because games are so public and so kind of on the fray. Nope, I'm going to be real with you. There's very few times in the world people would go I'm going to hack the government for the fun, right? You know, but they're going to be I'm going to hack this video game for the fun. I'm going to hack World of Warcraft. I'm going to bring the servers down. I'm going to go hack Apex Legends. That's a very very common thing on this side of the house is I'm just going to do it for the fun, and it's so yeah, I think those are two very different worlds with that. Is the game side, this happens constantly. It's a very, very normal thing. It's happened even over my career hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds of times.
It's a little bit bonkers to me just because it looks like a fun, weird, wild publicity stunt, especially again, $5 million event. All the public eyes are watching. You've got so many teams and people working on this. And it's like, haha, we did it for people.
You remember what you were like when you were younger, is like learning
totally.
offensive security, right? And it's the same kind of a thing. You've got a kid that's really good at solving puzzles. He wants to solve the puzzle, right? And you have with games, the reason why I think this happens more often with games, you have a very wide surface. So there's a lot of ways you can mess with the game. You can hit authentication servers. You can hit the game servers themselves. You're interacting with the game server directly inside of a video game. This is why people go, wow, I found a way to dupe items. I'm going to tell all my friends. I found a way to bot in a video game because I don't want to do daily quests anymore. I found a way to bring down the servers because I thought it was funny. I found a way to, ban another player so that other raid doesn't get an advantage over us. This is why it leads to this kind of for the fun instead of for ransomware, for money. Right. It ends up going in that direction because there's such a large surface of interaction for players. And so you get a couple of people that like solving puzzles and they solve the wrong kind of puzzles, right? Let's see. The hacks sent the Apex Legends community into a frenzy. Countless streamers in the incidents. Some players suggesting Apex Legends is not safe to play. Yeah, anytime something like this happens, immediate gut reaction is like, let's stay away from that for 24 to 48 hours till we can figure out what's going on. Normal thing. Really normal thing to do. I don't think that's inappropriate to do. The part where it became inappropriate to me was, it's remote code execution, everybody. That's jumping the gun. I think it's really bad. I also didn't like the amount of negativity towards the developers. That made no sense to me. So that's why I started speaking out and started looking into this, because I'm like, the general public doesn't understand how difficult it is to be on the security side of stuff, especially not in such a public position in games, right? Because you're always being viewed. You're always being judged by a community of thousands or millions of players. And anything that goes wrong with the game, they immediately jump to, you're an idiot. I could do it better. You don't know what you're talking about. Every time. Every single time, that's the first jump from the community. And part of me streaming game development is trying to fix that. And fixing that, the only way you can do it is by communicating, being like, here's how this stuff works. Now you have a little more perspective, and maybe it shifts in the other direction. And what I've seen, I'm pretty happy with this, is the talks that we've had so far have shifted the player base's opinion of the developers. We've seen dramatic changes in just like positivity on forums, and lots of people speaking out saying like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for communicating. Thank you for trying, right? It shifted that in the other direction, which is, it just took streamers saying, hey, this is how it works, right? So I'm definitely going to keep doing that in the future if I keep seeing this kind of stuff until, we can stamp it out. Because like a lot of the times devs just can't do anything. They can't say a word to you. They can't tell you what's going on. They can't tell you that the hacks are happening. They can't tell you how the hacks are happening because there's an investigation happening, And it's just, their hands are tied. The hacks, quote, the hacks never went outside the game.
Big one.
Now, that's an interesting one because that goes back to what I was saying before, right? If they had client control access to that player and the graphic that they showed up on screen, it could have been a fake. Like I was saying, it's a visual fake, right? So if he's telling the truth, then the guy's computer was never compromised, technically. What was being shown was a visual, right? Just a visual menu, not real. Not a program running on his computer, something visual in the game. Which, what funnier thing would you do than do that, right? 100%. Then who was connected to Hal's PC? That IP address was irrelevant. It looks like Hal's home network is misconfigured slightly, and it's allowing outside of his network traffic to ping him, and that was a scanner machine. We actually marked that out. It's already done. Yeah. The aimbot was real. That is correct, which means they had control over something on the machine, and that's the part that is interesting in this. The visual thing, I could see that being possible. The aimbot's more interesting. They know how to patch it without anyone reporting them, he said. Let's see. Without anyone reporting it to them. You know what I'm wondering? The more that I look at this, the more that I'm wondering if it's QA tools being activated on the client. Ooh. The more that I'm wondering is that, because aimbot, things like that, spawning in bots, doing all that kind of stuff, those are a lot of quality assurance style tools. It doesn't mean that they are. It doesn't mean it is. Right. But I'm wondering if that's something you can do from the server side to flag an account to be able to run those and he's got some kind of an exploit to do that, and then he's running those things on the client. That's the only thing I can think of at that point. There's so many different ways to do this that like that is an option now, right? QA tools
you don't play Apex yourself, is that right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I don't either. So I don't mean to be speculating on all those, but maybe the QA or some API shenanigans, it's totally a possibility. So.
Have you actually seen the extent of what he was able to do with the attacks? Because there's a couple of things in here that are very interesting. He was able to do aimbot, right? He was able to do ESP, which is seeing through walls, on a remote client. These are all on remote client. Then so this is remote. We can do this on remote, is what he did. On local, he was able to generate packs, which are paid for packs of like cosmetics and stuff like that. He was able to generate thousands and thousands of these. Now, this could be done with server access of some kind, or potentially with stolen credit cards, right? Either of those could be done. And then he traded these to players. 4,000 of them to one player, 3,000 to another player. It's like loot boxes, right? So that's another thing that you do. And then the bots. This is kind of the extent of his attacks right now, which is aimbot and ESP remotely, packs and bots specifically on like a local or server related access. For the bots, he requires the server ID. I doubt he got the server ID for the, tournament server. I doubt he got that. So I don't know how he got these. That's the interesting one. That's why we went down the route of like, hey, is this were those end machines compromised in this case? Don't know. Let's see. He did during the tournament. Destroyer 2009 said he went viral, but not many people would have used an exploit like that in an absolutely innocent way for players. Just imagine if it wasn't a joke and we didn't put any memes in the cheat. I'm pretty sure you can ruin someone's career if they can cheat pop up on a tournament. That's completely correct. I actually talked to ImperialHal about that specifically, which is if they would have popped that up in the middle of the game and they would have shown the cheat and they didn't put any jokes in it, they didn't put the thing about Putin in there, they didn't put like the TSM halal and they didn't put any of that joke, his career would be over. His career would be 100% over. He'd never be able to prove that that wasn't him activating cheating tools. And he'd be fired today. Basically, as a streamer, as a pro player, as a content creator, be over, and no one would ever believe him. End of career. Yeah, end of career. So Destroyer 2009 is completely correct about this. That statement is absolutely true, and I find that to be very interesting. Defending his actions in an attempt to show that he never had malicious intentions. He definitely had malicious intentions, just not malicious that far. This is already malicious. It's 100% malicious. To not see that is kind of a disconnect from reality for me, honestly. This is malicious intent, 100%, to do these things, but not that far. He could have gone farther, is really all it is. Yeah.
That statement kind of just boggles my mind because it feels like a very weird ethical, moral, like, I don't know. Are you justifying to a certain extent? Is that a grandstand? And I don't want to point fingers or throw shade, but obviously, look, this is the situation that we're in. So that is just an oddball sentence to me. Well, yes, we're acknowledging, look, it could have gone way, way worse. Cancel culture, end career, game over. But it's not to throw fire on the flames.
The biggest thing for me is anyone who's in any position, no matter who it is, bad guy, good guy, somebody who's doing heinous things, someone who's doing murders, anything like that, you have to do a little bit of behavioral analysis and see this. Those types of statements show me that he has an internal justification for doing that because he doesn't feel that it's malicious. Because he doesn't feel it's malicious, he feels that this is jokes. This is fine. This is okay. And he doesn't care about any of the damage that's being done there because it's like, oh, it's just a game. It's silly. It doesn't matter. So there is still a level of he has justified his actions as being fine, right? So that's a little bit of behavioral analysis there. And this gives you a limit, a general understanding for what he thinks is justified, what he thinks is malicious, what he thinks is normal. So it would go this far and likely not farther, right? Unless pushed or unless he's like backed into a corner or some shit, because you never know what someone's going to do under those positions.
Right.
So when he allegedly hacked one of the players and inserted cheats into their game, he didn't insert cheats into the game. We have no evidence of that. We've seen the images, right? A window appeared on the player's screen showing a menu for a tool that used to enable different cheats in the game. One of the options in the cheat window was vote Putin. Yeah, so we saw that. Destroyer 2009 said that the window is a part of a real cheat software, but not one that is public, and whose menu was slightly modified for the hacks on Sunday. The hacker also said he targeted those specific players who go by Burton. It's Jen Burton, isn't it? Not G Burton?
Yeah, there's missing an N, you're right.
Yeah, Jen Burton. and ImperialHal because they're just nice guys. Jen Burton and ImperialHal have like some of the highest viewerships of all those guys in those games, in those areas. So like,
what a coincidence.
Yeah, I don't believe him here. I 100% don't believe the statement of like, oh, they're just nice guys. No, shut up.
They're nice guys, and they have the most eyeballs on them.
Yeah, you did it to the people that are the most visible at the time they were most visible. Like, stop it. Stop being bullshit about that. There's no reason for that.
Right.
Yeah, it's clout. That's 100% clout chasing to me. Free attention and views for them, he added. No, it's not. Shut up. Like, this is about that whole justification, right? He's found internal justification for the actions. Oh, I'm improving their viewership. It's not bad. You know, it's not bad. I'm improving their viewership. Like, shut up. This is delusion 100%. He's deluding himself into thinking that what he's doing is justified and correct because no one wants to be the bad guy. Get it. 100% get it. On Tuesday, Respawn, the studio that develops Apex Legends, posted a statement on X, formerly Twitter. God, X, formerly Twitter, every time.
Right.
And this was the one. They said an update from Play Epic's team, right? They said on Sunday, a few professional Apex Legends player accounts were hacked during an ALGS event. Game and player security are our highest priorities, which is why we paused the competition to address the issue immediately. Our teams have deployed the first of a layered series of updates to protect the Apex Legends player community and create a secure experience for everyone, which means they put in the first step for this. I actually responded to this, so let me go grab this real fast.
Oh, yeah, I saw your quote tweet. It was very good.
Yeah, I quote tweeted this because it's more important for like more context for people. I said fog of war when fighting stuff like this is immensely important. It's been clear throughout this that Respawn has been working in the background. Companies are bound in situations like this and cannot tip their hands. Glad this is public. You'll love to see it. And the general response was quite good. People have 200 likes on this, and the original one as well. Let me go to the original one, see what that one's looking like. You've got 15,000. So the community's perception of this is definitely positive. It means that they're going in the right direction. They're doing what they need to. And with the amount of communication we've done and amount of communication that Respawn is doing, it's great. And also some of the devs have reached out to me and they thanked me for talking about this because their team has been absorbing a shitload of hate up until we started talking about this. And that tide has turned. People are reaching out to them, giving them positive vibes. And it means a lot to them. You have to remember, this is a job. They are doing a job. Imagine going to work and people tell you that you don't deserve to have a job every day, that you're at work for hours a day, like 10 hours a day. And they're just like, you suck, while your work is on fire, while it's like the worst possible time at work as well. And you just have the public doing that shit. It's a mess, dude. And I think sometimes when players are mad, when we're angry as players, we immediately jump to, I have to take this out on someone, so I'm going to take it on the devs. Devs are dumb, right? And they're doing a job, dude. It's work. You go to work 8 hours a day and people are like, I hate you. I was like, thanks, man. That's great.
If I could push the envelope like a little bit further, because I know we were chatting just a bit ago when you were in the middle of the article talking about, hey, yeah, there were some folks thinking the game was unsafe to play, which in the moment is a totally understandable, well-reasoned foundation. But we were kind of mentioning like, look, when we start screaming and shouting about remote code execution and sort of jumping to conclusions and, I don't know, making these exaggerated claims, that's where we find the sticking point. But as you have been doing a phenomenal job of like, look, we kind of need to be a bit more positive on this and just a little bit more uplifting because these are people, both the players, both the devs, both the teams and security folks listening in. And again, I don't want to be beating a dead horse, but like for the classic cybersecurity sense, when an organization or company has a breach, literally has an incident, they're hacked, whether it's 23andMe, whether it's, Change Healthcare, whatever the heck. Look, it's people and it's their business, and you're talking about it's the job. Like, look, it could very well be their lifeblood. This could be a passion that they've poured years, hard work and sweat into. So when a hacker, deploys ransomware and like, do I pay hackers? Do I not pay hackers to get that data back? No one can make that real decision other than you when you're not in their shoes. So I know it's a struggle and strife. So my heart goes out to the folks working behind the scenes. Big support, big ups, and kudos for sticking with the fight.
Yeah, I super agree with that. And it's like, my whole thing is like, since, I'm software and game development and like, streaming all through that category is we've got a lot of people from the games industry there. We've also got a lot of people that are interested in games and making games, right? So showing people like this kind of stuff is how it works. This is what ends up happening. And if you can communicate with your player base effectively, a lot of this stuff just goes away. You've seen, we've basically changed the whole narrative on how to treat developers in critical situations like this in like 3 days. As long as you are talking to your players, as long as you are explaining things to them clearly and trying to be as open and honest as you can, you win. The problem for a lot of major game companies is they're tied up in all of the problems with legal. They're tied up in the problems of the investigation and tipping their hand. They're tied up in the problems of financial. And it doesn't help that the team that you're seeing that's dealing with security stuff is on their own dealing with security stuff, and their whole thing is on fire, right? Yeah. While another team that, say, is creating monetization methods such as microtransactions, their job is still fine. Even though this is the same company, the job is completely split. So because of this, these guys keep releasing stuff, and the community goes, you're not fixing anything, you're just releasing microtransactions. Because that's what it looks like on the outside. But in reality, these are two separate teams. One's not going to stop working just because the other one's on fire, right? That's not going to happen. And they have deadlines and things that they have to go and work on. So it's understanding that, and people go, oh, wait a minute, you're right. And they stop yelling about it. Their heads stopping on fire, and they walk away from it. Because it's not their fault. Yeah.
Can I get your hot take, Tor? Because in my mind, my knee-jerk reaction is like, look, I want the transparency. I'm understanding, and I'd love for you to fall on your sword and give me the gory details. Sure. While I know and acknowledge, look, you can't always do that, especially in the big firms and the spots where legal, multiple teams, hey, whatever regulation, policy crap gets in the way. Is that a symptom of the larger, not to say conglomerate, but to say the big boy businesses, the big boy game studios? And you've been there, right? Blizzard, I wanted to tee that up for you, but again, my scrappy grassroots is feeling like, no, give me the deets, spill the tea.
No, it's 100% that.
It's hard.
I have been in so many situations, even when I was in AAA, right, where we found major vulnerabilities or we found things that really upset me, and I was like, and everyone's like, how are we going to explain this to people? And I was like, just tell them. Just tell them. They're like, we can't do that. I was like, why can't we do that? Legal wouldn't allow us to. And I'm like, God damn it, dude. Because no, the way that you erode player trust is not all at once. It's in little pieces of things that don't make sense. People aren't idiots. And when you tell them something that's just slightly off, they know it's slightly off. And the more that you do that, the longer that you do that, you erode it over time, and then no one trusts you anymore. These types of flashpoint moments can only happen if you have somebody who has left the industry, that saw how the sausage is made, and then we talk about it publicly because I've seen it, right? But there's very few people that do that. Most of the people that work in tech stay in tech. There's not very many of us that become streamers. There's not very many of us that become content creators like you. Like, it doesn't happen, right? So with that in mind, of course, the narrative is broken down. Of course, there's more, people that don't believe these major companies. And I think the best thing that anyone can take from this, focus on community, like communication. If you have a legal team that says we can't do this, push that legal team to what you can do, to the limit of what you can do. Because if you leave out critical details for your community, they're going to call you on it. And part of what they're going to do when they call you on it is just never trust anything you say again. Like,
I get a little bit feisty on this one, because if the answer is, oh, legal won't let us, then I'll be like, all right, fire your legal team. And I know that's not a reality, but I wish it could be that sharp. And like, look, the transparency, the communication, the upfront, like, I don't know, pouring your guts out is a lot of times good.
Yeah, even saying fire your legal team, I don't think is great. It's like, those are dudes working too. They have to protect the company, right? So the thing that I would think about with this, to be honest with you, is there has to be a limit. And I'll give you an example. One of the things Respawn could have talked about here is, hey, we're still releasing these packs because that's a separate team. They're doing their work. Security's doing their work. Everybody's doing their job. We're moving forward together. And if you don't want to buy the packs because you hate the state of the game, we understand. You say that, that's total. Like, I don't think legal's ever going to have a problem with that. I don't think they will. And to be honest about it, just like that, blunt and honest about it, be like, hey, if you don't want to buy these things right now because you don't trust us, we get it. Done. Like that alone, that kind of a statement alone is totally fine. You mean artists and security are at the same team? I know, right? Gurn's in chat. So Gurn is actually a buddy of mine from the Psychoholics. So he's on my hacking team, Psychoholics, at DEF CON.
Oh, is that the DEF CON? Excellent.
Yeah, he's a malware specialist.
Are you going again this year? I hope I can run into you.
I will be, yeah. So I'll be going this year finally, after a long hiatus of not going because of COVID and everything else that went along with it. And we're going to kick some ass. I will likely be competing the entire time, because that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, I sit in a corner and play a CTF. I would love to nerd out with you on that one. Are you just doing the big, like, hardcore quals, or are you finding any other village or black badge spot? I was at the ICS village for the last couple of years.
So the last 3 times that I went, we did badge challenge twice and then Telefreaks. So we did the Telefreak challenge and we won all 3 of those. So I got the 3 black badges from that for 23, 24, and 25. The first year that I went was 22, and I competed and I lost. So I went home and I was like, I'm going to go train and do a bunch of cool shit and then meet a bunch of people and join a team. And this time, I don't know what we're going to do, Because I don't know, like, is Lost making badges this year? Does he make badges anymore? It's been a while, right?
Mostly Kingpin.
Because, Lost doesn't make them anymore, does he, Gerd? So, like, I don't know. I'm just going to hang out. We're going to do shit. I'm going to help with Crash and Compile. I know that much. So Crash and Compile should be a lot of fun.
Are you a... do they do Hack Fortress at DEF CON? I would think they do.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. No, I'd love to hang out. We should totally...
Gern actually brought up a really interesting point. Let's go back and look at this. This is a really... I'd missed this. Why is this not searching? Where is the statement? Hacks never went outside the game.
Oh yeah, we got to drill down into that too. The paragraph above it is super pertinent for us to dig
details
into.
until everything is fully patched and everything goes back to normal. So he's going to release the details, which is good. That's a good thing, actually. I think that is good. Has nothing to do with the server, and I've never touched anything outside of the Apex process. Out of the Apex process, the employee angle is the thing at this point. Apex hacking global series, but destroyed 2009 at random. That was one of the things I brought up yesterday, was like the possibility of an employee account being compromised. Especially because you have that possibility, and then you have the layoffs right afterwards, so there could be leftover accounts that like no one's paying attention to. You know?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I'm reading Apex process as the actual executable, the running application, right? Or are you thinking, the game production process with employees and personnel?
I would say the game production process with employees and personnel. The reason why I would think about that is not even game production process, but like access to servers through an employee account, right? That's important to understand. Let me go look at this.
I guess I interpret it as, hey, the running...
So, yeah, you see this? No viruses will be uploaded for usual players and streamers. It doesn't say employees. And that's another piece of that. Gern actually just brought that up to me, and he's completely correct. I've wondered the whole time if he has access to an employee account of some kind that would give him access to the servers. Now, remember, speculation. This is another route. Anytime we bring up something like this, it is a route of possibility, not a route of is, right? The way that we do this is when you are doing an investigation, you bring everything that is possible onto the table. Every single piece that is possible, and then you go through those and you goes, now let's test it. Was this actually possible? No. The IP thing doesn't matter. We mark that one gone, right? Let's say, injecting things into the visuals of the client. This is possible. So let's do more investigation until it's not possible. You're excluding all of the options that look potentially real, right? And that's why we bring these things are like, that could be possible. It could be possible that they have access to an employee account that gives them access to the commands that would be required to attach all the bots and everything else that goes along with it, right? So that's a potential, not a fact. And I find the biggest problem is a lot of people are parroting online, and they take little sections of what I'm talking about, and they say, this is exactly it. He's a big, security brain, and it's like, dude, no, this is an investigation. How to problem solve, one piece at a time. Exactly.
Yeah, I try to make that clear in kind of my own messaging is like, look, I'm not by any means the arbiter or voice or like absolute decree of certainty here. I'm not an expert. I consider myself not. I just look, there are no experts in this field. It's just too big. There's too much to dig into. I'll admit I'm not as convinced on the employee supply chain process interpretation. I still think I lean towards more, the executable application running on your endpoint on the computer, especially as he starts to touch on the vulnerability. The next couple of paragraphs that mention, look, it's not going outside of the game enclave of the in-game runtime. And they note down below, look, the only reason they didn't do responsible disclosure in the traditional sense is because there's no bug bounty program. There's no VDP or vulnerability disclosure program, which is kind of wild to see in this context, in my mind.
Yeah, it's also important to before, right? any of the language that you see here too. We can't believe that at its face. Number one, it's the attacker. Number two, it is likely translated. The attacker in many cases has communicated in Cyrillic. So we've seen this here. Claims he's from Belarus, speaks in Russian, basic stuff, right? So it may not be a good translation when he says Apex process, right?
That's totally fair.
It could mean the client. It could absolutely mean the game client, like you were talking about. So yeah, that could be it as well, which is interesting. Teams have deployed the first layered series of updates. So this is them talking about Apex actually talking about stuff, which did not provide any details on what this first update was. Likely they won't be able to. Easy Anti-Cheat, the developers of Easy Anti-Cheat said in Apex Legends and several other games, said in a statement on Monday that they were confident there's no RC vulnerability within EAC being exploited, which is fine. That's a good statement to have. Again, This goes down to what is possible. Is it possible there's an RCE they haven't detected? Yes. Does it prove it? No. Does it disprove it? No. A company has made a statement. Still got to test it, right? Every time, no matter what. I'm never going to believe any of this stuff out of hand unless we have documented, testing going forward and making sure, if that makes sense. Do you agree with that?
I do. And hey, let me ask you a big question here.
Yeah.
Do you think we will get that from Respawn, Apex, on that side, or do you think it will come from Destroyer 2009? Or both?
I honestly believe it's going to come from Destroyer. I don't think that the company can open itself up to legal liability in that way by fully explaining a vulnerability. It is likely that the only way we'll ever know the full details of this vulnerability is from the actual hacker, because a company can't do that. Like, the companies generally won't do that. If the hacker wants to release it, then he will. If he doesn't, we likely will never know unless we can replicate it, which we won't be able to after Respawn fixes it. So, like, that's something that I always feel about. They might do, like, a postmortem, maybe, but I have doubts about a company releasing that fully, just knowing, because I've worked in AAA, how companies are basically in a chokehold from what is legally allowed to do. Their hands are completely tied. I don't think that's wrong with Respawn. I don't think that's wrong with the dev teams on Respawn. I think that's a legal constraint, and that shit sucks. Like, it's not great. So I would rather that be released to the public, frankly. Personally, I would rather everybody know what happened, to the extent of what happened, so that everyone can feel better, like, hey, they actually know what's going on. They fixed it for real. Because one of the things you're going to get when people go and work on this stuff, man, is when the bug is finally fixed, the general gaming community is going to be like, they didn't do shit. Like, there's going to be another Destroyer 2009, and then any other pickup kid that's going to come after this that has any cheat at all is going to name himself Destroyer 2009, or say that he's the ghost of Destroyer or some shit, and the whole community is going to light on fire again and believe that he's back, right? And it's gonna be that same thing, because it'll go back into, we don't trust the devs, we don't trust the process, because they don't get to see the process. So I guarantee the next bug that comes out for this game is going to be that shit, right? And it's stupid. It's always stupid. You can't assume that what you're seeing on the internet is real. Treat it like it's April Fool's Day, which is the best day of the year, frankly.
It's coming up soon. You doing anything fancy?
Oh yeah, I love April Fool's Day. Is my favorite day of the year, because it's the one day of the year that everyone goes on the internet and they go, nah, that's bullshit. Like, for the first time ever, people will go on the internet and say that's bullshit. They won't just
actually be skeptical.
Immediately believe it, which is, like, ridiculous to me, frankly. Yeah, let's check the rest of this out. So at this point, there's no public evidence that points in that direction. So they're talking about the RCE, which is true. Good on them. Good job, TechCrunch. Proud of that. This is like the first time I have read in print from a journalism source on the internet where they've said there's no public evidence. Finally, people are talking with sanity in mind, which is good. It's a very good thing. I'm glad. Despite the attention that hacks caused, Destroyer 2009 said the players shouldn't worry about it because he doubts others will figure out the vulnerability he used and how to exploit it before he gets bashed. I know that's a little bit of ego from the attacker, but I agree with it. And the reason why I agree with it, he's worked on this for 4 years. He's talked about it very often. He's very proud of the fact that he's been digging into this game specifically for 4 years. But I think that has a time limit on it. I think it does. And I think the more that people dig, the more that people are interested in this. You've got one dude that's very dedicated at wanting to do this for 4 years and find all these different exploits. Going forward, you're going to have a lot of people that are like, I'm kind of interested in that, and they may find similar or the same methods, right? So I think that's got a time limit on it now, based on the amount of exposure this has. Yeah.
I think, I don't know, when I recreate proof of concepts and exploits and stuff, when we're digging into a lot more vulnerabilities falling from the sky, I know that there is a sort of duration, like the golden hours of exploitation, when you've got offense versus defense, good versus evil, whatever, however you want to put it, of like, look, how quickly could this be taken advantage of before the doors and windows are locked up. And right now, and as it's been the past couple of days, Destroyer 2009 has been the only one with this magic wand. So you're right. And that, look, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a strong arm when we get to say, kind of offhand, a little carefree, players don't need to worry about it because, look, I'm the only wizard right now. But
and that's the important part of that statement, though. Totally I'm the only wizard right now. Yeah. Like, once you show people that spell book, man, other people are going to copy your spells. They'll find a way. They'll do the exact same thing. So now that it's so public, I guarantee there's a time limit on this. I'm waiting to see. Unless he
I
has
really like-
specific privileged access, where he's found a way to get specific privileged access through a single like user, like an employee account or something like that. Then I would agree. There'd be no way.
I have a semblance of solace where he says, I don't want to go into details until everything is fully patched and everything goes back to normal. Which, I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit of acknowledgement of like, whoa, we just turned on a firestorm here.
Yeah.
And maybe now we're going to put the brakes on and realize, okay, let's wait until those doors and windows are boarded up. And then maybe we can spill our guts and, show those cool magic tricks. But to your point, we don't want to do that, even with a piece of moral and ethical compass there, knowing that could totally be used and abused in that sort of middle ground time frame.
Because this comes down to that specific thing with his morality compass, like what his general drive is. He sees this as jokes. He sees anything beyond this as being malicious. This is likely because of that moral compass, legitimately, and it's likely because he doesn't want anyone else to replicate what he's doing in a way that is more malicious than he would be comfortable with, if that makes sense. It's just whatever his level of comfort is in terms of like how malicious it goes. Like, this is malicious, but it's not malicious to me, so it's not malicious. But that guy did something malicious that's more than I would be allowing, and he used my work, and now it's personal, right? That's kind of a thing. The one thing I'm really interested in this, too, is if you look at all of this, I really don't want to go into details. Destroyer 2009. What about Random? Who the hell is that?
Yeah, I was seeing that in the chat. Like, no one is talking about Random, and I don't think that name even ever came up in conversations prior. Is that right? I'd have to ask the chat, because again, I'm not in the Apex community.
Yep.
But is that normally a quote-unquote household name for game modders, game hackers? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. I have no idea who that is. And if you search them online, there's not really anything there. Maybe it was just a friend that helped him on that one part of the project. Maybe it was a friend that helped him do the graphic for like displaying that on the screen. We have no idea. We have no clue. Whoever it is, an accomplice of some kind, but that's such a generic handle, frankly.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like, have you actually looked into Destroyer 2009?
Not a ton, other than, hey, the silly stuff I could see on YouTube where folks are having their interviews and trying to catch them in the middle of the game. They have the like voice changer, and I couldn't tell if that was a meme or not, truth be told.
In 2009, a movie called Destroyer came out, and the description of the movie is a man navigates through a future of overwhelming security. If that's not related, I'll eat a hat.
Oh, wow.
So cool name, cool handle.
Fact.
Gonna be real.
Yeah.
If that's not actually why he has his handle, then cool coincidence. But if it is why he has his handle, I get it. I understand. Fun handle, right? But the other guy's, his name is just random. Like, so there's no anything on that handle. There's no history of that handle. It also makes it harder to search, which is the thing, right? Yeah.
There are a lot of things where like, hey, you know what? I know you're a threat actor. I know you're not to say, actual adversary, maybe just, hey, making some memes and lols in video games in certain extent. But you got to respect the craft, man.
Oh.
You got to tip your hat and say, dang, that was badass.
So Halcyon and in chat just said, Random did Apex hacking software before, so that's probably why I wouldn't know about him. That was up for buying as a monthly payment. So he had a subscription service hack. He never interfered with streamers or players in-game himself so far. So this is kind of him, teaming up with that. If that is the same person, if Destroyer is the same person as, if they actually is the same Random, right? Then yeah, it would make sense. Check no-go message. Who's no-go? Let me see. User no-go. Messages. It's not random. It's a meme from the video. What's the meme from the video, my dude? Destroyer 2009 is actually a meme name from a YouTube collab video with Bryson Tiller. So it wasn't actually related to that. Even funnier. See, this is when you're going down these routes and you're like finding stuff, you're like, this, you have to admit, that fits pretty goddamn well, right? Movie named Destroyer 2009, a man navigates through a future of overwhelming security. That's a cool-ass handle story, right?
Perfect.
That's a funny-ass, it fits insanely well. So I'm like, well, that's possible, and also very funny, right?
Is the runtime on that movie 5 minutes, if I may ask?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It is 5 minutes.
Okay.
A 5-minute film, dude. It's a short film. Dude, you know what? Hey, Destroyer 2009, if you're out there, say this is the reason, because this shit's way more compelling. I'm going to be honest with you. That's funny as hell.
Yeah,
that's
I got
hilarious.
in a fight with a bear, renamed myself.
Yeah, dude. God
Tell a
damn.
cool story.
Now I have to eat a hat. Great. Well, I'm going to eat Cardboard Cowboy's hat anyway. It's fine. I promised you that. And he hasn't sent me the hat yet. That's on him.
Can you do it at DEF CON? I want to cheer you on, my friend.
Dude, on it. He has to go to DEF CON, though. And he's like I don't even know if he could go. I don't know if he's in Australia, dude.
Oh,
He'd have to come all the way
that's a
out.
hike.
Yeah,
Worth it.
interesting backstory in the random. So it's from a YouTube video. Or is that Destroyer's name is from a YouTube video? That's interesting. Weird. DEF CON's canceled. It's always canceled. There's also a Marvel Punisher comic called Destroyer in 2009. See, this is what happens, right? This is why I love doing cryptographic challenges at DEF CON, because when we're solving challenges, this is what happens. They'll be like, oh, Destroyer 2009. You're like, there was a movie called Destroyer in 2009. There was a comic book called Destroyer 2009. There was a man named Destroyer 2009. And you're just like, God
It's
damn
like
it.
hidden bar trivia. Not
Yep.
gonna lie.
I'll give you an example of this. So, like, I set up an ARG for my game Heartbound.
Nice.
And part of the ARG actually had them do something really funny. Is I found a weird association. Let me see if I can find this real fast. Truncated, what's in a name? Not what's in a name. I will find this. Another
Cool.
place.
While you're hunting,
I'm hunting.
I would love to, I don't know, think on what are the things now that we might be able to lay out on the table with a little bit more certainty, with a little bit more confidence as to how things went down. Again, adding the disclaimer, adding the footnote and asterisk that, look, if we take this at face value or not, we can't believe everything on the internet, but it seems like this answered some questions, not all, and we can't get super duper technical on the actual tooling and how the exploit worked, because look, again, no one knows that.
No one knows it.
Destroyer's got the magic wand. We could pontificate. I don't know if that's worthwhile, but it sounds like, and I don't know if you'd agree here, look, okay, there was vulnerabilities some way, somehow. These were client side, and that they could manipulate a piece of the game lobby, although that didn't affect the server, nor did it affect the players' computers themselves. There was no, from what we understand, from what we gather, malware. There was no invocation of, remote code execution, again, that hot topic here, on the players or potential players, if anyone were to join whatever random lobby playing Apex right now.
That is correct. I have not seen a single example of remote code execution in this whatsoever. I have not seen anything that would endanger the average player. I see a targeted attack on 2 specific players, and I see no evidence of anything else beyond that for widespread attacks. Does it mean that that's not possible? No, it doesn't mean that's not possible. It could totally be possible, but we're not seeing any evidence of this. How illegal is what Destroyer 2009 has done? I believe that is going to be a violation of the Computer Act in the United States, which is federal crime. So at that point, because he's gained access to the end user's machines, right? That's that. And he's, this is, at the same time, if he's in Belarus, as he claims, they're not going to extradite him. So, like, what are you going to do? Yeah. I think that's the important part with that is, like, if you're in a country that is not willing to extradite to the United States, what are they going to do? At that point, they're just be like, well, if you ever come here, that's a crime. Like, that's what ends up happening there, because, like, that's it. You got nothing else. I'm going to keep looking for
I
this.
think you tuned into OPSEC some times ago. Like, look, the operational security of a wanted cyber criminal or potential computer felon. When we dig into a whole lot of either malware case studies, oh goodness, it was the raccoon stealer, one of the info stealer samples, and there was foreign name, right? Michael Sokolovsky, and I think his girlfriend had like mentioned on Instagram, hey, we're driving out of Ukraine or whatever. I don't know all the ins and outs, but that picture was enough to get law enforcement the capability to go track that down and then go make whatever interdiction and operation that they needed. And Raccoon Sealer took a hit for that, right? Because that's how, we could get some of that potential forward action.
Yep. So this is, I actually found it finally. It was part of the ARG that I put together for the team, for the community. It says the characters in the number at this stage were 2140425. And if you search this on the internet, it'll come up with a GIF peanut butter recall. Now, when I was building this puzzle, I didn't know that that number was the recall number for this. And it's always the first result on Google, which is really funny. So I started to form the puzzle around this to mess with them because it's specifically a recall for salmonella. And the inside of a salmon is red. So it's a red herring, and it took them a while to figure out that it was a meme. And so it says even in here, what does peanut butter have to do with disk drives? And the answer is nothing. It has nothing to do with disk drives. This is a joke. Move on. And it was very, very funny to watch them just freak out about peanut. People were like having nightmares about peanut butter for weeks and shit. It was great. It was fantastic.
What an incredibly obscure connection between that number and then the Jif peanut butter recall code.
Exactly. And that's the reason when you find these types of things, you're like, oh, Destroyer 2009. Oh, there was a movie and it's about security. It all makes sense. It fits so well, but it's not actually related in any way.
Code.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
And it's about those types of associations. This is why a long time ago, I got away from the it's absolutely this to this is potential. Let's prove it. This seems more or less likely. Likely is always the term. This seems likely. This seems unlikely based on the information at hand. And always be willing to go back and be like, hey, that is more correct or that is less correct or that is, whatever it's going to be. You have to keep it on the table. You always have to keep it on the table because you don't know. It's an investigation. You don't get the right answer immediately. And when something seems right, doesn't mean it is.
I can't say anything with certainty. I always try to add the disclaimer, add the footnote that look, take this with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary. I don't know. And I'm totally okay with saying that because look, I'm happy to be schooled. I'm happy to be told that I'm wrong, but we got to figure it out together.
Yeah, no, I super agree. I super agree with that. So I think this makes all sense. I think what we end up being in is we're kind of in a holding pattern now, right? We're waiting for I don't think there's going to be more attacks right now.
No.
I think based on his mentality, if any of his real mentality is showing through here, which likely people do, they push a little bit out there. I think he's going to wait for Respawn to fix this. And then I feel like he would probably make good on his claim that he's going to release the vulnerability, which I think is a good idea. I think that's a good thing for closure for the community. And if he actually, wants to put that out there, it'll show, to be real with you, from the behavioral side of it, it will show the brilliance of his investigation to find the vulnerability, which is, to me, more likely of a reason for him to release that than to fix the game.
That's
hey,
his
look
trophy.
look at the cool thing that I did. Goodbye, right? And I think that's more likely to me. That's more likely of a driver. Yeah,
that's his medal. That's his podium for a little bit. And I think that I'd agree. That's probably what he wants. And it's weird to boil it down to that, but that makes sense.
If I was in his position, I would too. That's the reason why I feel that way. I don't think it's wrong to feel that way. Like, he did something wild. He captured the interest of the world. He pulled off this stuff in a way that nobody understood what was going on, and he watched the house light on fire. There's a little bit of like, I did that, right? Even if it's a piece of shit thing to do, it's a little bit of I did that. So I can understand the position, right? I can completely understand the behavior, right?
Have you ever had a feeling like that through your offensive security days or any of your past work? Can I
100%.
ask? I don't mean to pry. Yeah.
Dude, 100%.
I think we all have.
It's usually like, holy shit. Like, there's always like the first one is like, holy shit, it just happened. That was a funny one. Like, I've been on sites where things have gone wrong. I've been on sites where I've gotten caught. I've been on sites where like, I actually tell one of the community all the time. I had one a long time ago, and I could talk about this. It was quite funny.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was very into magic, and I'm shit at magic. I'm shit at it, but I got good at palming objects in my hand. So I got good at palming like different small objects, things like that, so I can hold it and people don't realize that I'm holding a thing in my hand. And I started to practice this on home locks with rakes. I did it for a long time to try and do one-handed rakes because I think it's fun to try, to like push on that kind of stuff. And I do physical access control things. And while you never really pick locks, that's usually the last thing to do. It's usually something fun where I can do it, and I'm going to try to do it because it's a fun thing to do, not really like I have to do it. It's more like a fun thing. So I was hired onto this site, and I was doing a walk around with the owner. And I was like, what's in that room? And I reached out, and I used my right hand to open the door while doing the one-handed rake, and it popped on the first go. So to him, I reached out and opened the door, and he went, that door was locked. And I showed my hand, and I had the rake in my hand. I was like, it's not locked anymore. And he went white, and I was shitting myself inside. I was like, oh my God, it worked. Because like, that doesn't happen, dude. That never happens. It never happens. It doesn't work. It's like you roll a nat 20 kind of a thing, and you're just like, holy shit, I'm a wizard. And then 2 minutes later, you forget like where your shoes are or something, and you realize you're actually a dumbass. But like, I've had moments like that where you're like, oh man. And then I've had moments where you get caught and you're like I was doing another one where you're sitting in there, and this was a blizzard, right? And the wall is like this, and there's a door here, and there's a water thing there, and then there's like a thing like this, because it's like a weird office room, and it goes like this. There's like cubicles all back here, right? And you ever get that feeling like someone's watching you? You get that like kind of There's something in my peripheral that I can't see, but my brain's aware of it, sort of a thing. And I was like, someone's watching me. Oh shit, right? And I like look to my side, and there's this dude like this around the wall, and he just goes. Like, and I'm like, oh no, because I'm trying to pick the lock right here, and I'm sitting here, and my buddy's sitting there with a clipboard, and I was like, I start sweating, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get through the door. And then a manager comes around the wall, and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm doing my job. Is there something you need? And he's like, okay, what team are you from? I was like, fine, you got me, you know.
Dang it.
God damn it. You know, I tried to SE my way out of it at the last segment. It's too late. It was too late. But we ended up giving that dude an award, and like he got like a bonus or some shit because he caught the red team, and it was like a cool moment, right? Because like, good job. You know, really good job for that kind of thing. But yeah, you get all kinds of weird stuff that happens on operations, and you just hope you don't get, you know, tackled into gravel by some overzealous security guard. You know, it's like, it's not the fun kind. Yeah, it's not the fun kind. Physical pen testing. Yeah, physical pen testing's fun, man. So like my wheelhouse is a controller, like physical access control systems, Wi-Fi related vulnerabilities, web related vulnerabilities, and social engineering. So those are the things that I'm best at. There are things that are outside of that purview that I know jack shit about, right? Like my buddy Gurn, awesome at malware. I know some about malware, but dude, I'm not like a malware specialist, right? That's not what I do. That's not the area that I basically think of it as like a wizard in D&D, and you have like subclassing for wizards. You're like, I'm a conjuration wizard. Like it's the same. You choose a couple of them. You can't choose them all. It's too broad of an industry for there. And for me, I have a lot of experience specifically with games because I've been in the game industry for 20 years, right? And that's, so I get all of that extra one. So this makes me more specialized where it's games and the security stuff specifically together. Yeah, I choose them all. Good luck, dude. I wish I could choose them all. There's so much cool shit to learn, you know, and to be honest with you, you fall out of practice too. Every day I'm going and looking up new vulnerability stuff. Every day I'm getting new tools and trying stuff. I've got my home lab to try stuff on, right? And like, if you don't, then you fall out of practice. You do, 100%. What's up? My mods are telling me Telegram. The hacker appears to be in your chat under I am Destroyer 2009. So a guy is claiming to be the hacker in chat under I am Destroyer 2009. Chat is turnover if he's real or not, which they should be. Good on you. Good on you for being like, oh, that's just a dude named I am Destroyer on the internet.
I saw it fly by. That account was created today, which, you know, we take with a grain of salt. So. Did
you guys know that I'm actually Barack Obama? Did you know that? That's true.
You too?
Yeah, I've been Barack Obama my whole life. That's true. Yeah.
Same.
Yep. Congratulations. That's the thing is handles on the internet are handles on the internet. There's no way to verify the claim unless something happens, right? Unless there's some kind of proof of claim. Showing up in a Twitch chat and being like, I'm Destroyer. Like, I can't believe you. Even if you are actually Destroyer 2009, you know, like you could be anybody. That doesn't matter to me. There's, you know, there has to be proof of claim. I don't believe shit until it's proved. That's, you know, I'm too old of a nerd. And I've seen people eat the onion too many times for me to believe anything that I see in a Twitch chat. Not going to get one guide, you know? Oh, man. So, yeah, I think this is crazy interesting. I think it's a good... This is the calm before the storm moment. This is the time where Respawn has to fix stuff. I think what I'm mostly happy about, to be honest with you, is I'm mostly happy that we're able to help change the perception of general community members and help... You know, help them understand, like, don't treat devs like shit. Because when you go up to somebody who's at work, right, and they're working their job, and someone at their company makes a mistake, or they make a mistake, and you turn around and you go, you're a piece of shit for making a mistake. When was the last time you made a mistake? Were there 10,000, 100,000 people showing up to your job and telling you you're a piece of shit? Like, you have to think about it that way, because it's a job, dude. Like... Today, you must work retail. And that's not okay, right? Because that's exactly how that shit works in retail, doesn't it? It's not right. It's not right. If you don't like it there, you shouldn't like it here. It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. It sucks. It's so shit, frankly. I see it happen to fast food workers. I see it happen to people like janitors. I see it happen to retail workers. People believe that whoever that worker is beneath them, and they justify that kind of negative behavior to that person is okay because they basically justify it by saying, oh, that developer is bad. The only reason this happened is because they're bad. It's easy to stop cheaters. Just ban them. Just ban them, bro. And like, I think that's a big problem of perception, and a lot of it is fixed not by telling that person just stop, right? Because that's stupid. I think that it's it's fixed by educating them on what the actual process is and why those people can't respond in the way that you want them to. Because otherwise, yeah, they look like idiots. Otherwise, yeah, they look lazy. They look like they're not paying attention to you, like they don't care. And when someone comes in and says, no, they can't do this because they opened the company to legal liability, then everyone goes, oh, lawyers are involved? Yeah, dude, there's a federal crime that's taken place here. Of course lawyers are involved. That's some shit, dude. Like, it's always education advocate, always. Like, a big part of my community is teaching people how to make games and teaching people how to get into the programming industry or become artists or anything like that. We actually have a Discord with about 90,000 people on it. So it's got everything from like learning how to hack stuff, learning how to do programming stuff, learning how to do art, voice acting, writing, anything like that. It's discord.gg/PirateSoftware is the Discord. You can join it at any time. There's no monetization on any of this shit. I don't like putting money in the way of knowledge, ever. I don't like putting money in the way of knowledge. I want you guys to have it for free. And even stuff like this, too. Like, we can go to... I'm going to link this, and it's going to die instantly, by the way. This is our website for making video games. It's develop.games. It will die in seconds. The amount of throughput is too high. It's always too high. People just... They can't, right? It's too many people. It dies even with Cloudflare. It's whatever, right? So bookmark this. Yeah, it's already dead. I guarantee it. Bookmark it, but it's got everything you need to know about making video games. To start from the very beginning into you making your own game and releasing it on Steam or anything like that. It's got everything you need to know. Of course it's dead. Just bookmark it. I know it's dead. This happens when there's 9,000 people here.
Look, it's a Python script on a Raspberry Pi, all right? Give me some slack.
The best part about it is it's actually HTML and CSS. Just flat HTML and CSS. There's nothing in it. There's no JavaScript. There's no PHP. None of it. It's freaking HTML and CSS, and you guys still kill it. I was like, how lean can I make this shit? It's cached even. Dead. Nice. Instantly dead. So yeah, no, it's everything you would need to know to release a game, and I think that's the most important for this is learning how to do that stuff. It should be free and open information. So I make it free and open information. Frankly, yeah, it's the 20,000 people hitting it in 2 seconds is what did it.
Well, hey, my friend, I don't want to boil it down, but I think the point you were really driving towards there, and I don't know if it's too cheesy, but like, look, it's compassion. It's just a certain amount of understanding that, look, there are people at the other end of the screen in all directions. And if we get that awareness, if we get that understanding as to how things look and how things really are, maybe a little bit on the inside with as much as we can share, but that paints the bigger picture that we just need to get the awareness and messaging out on. So thank you, if I may say, of like, look, let's drive the positive message here and know that, look, we're trying to get these things sorted out and situated. But if we do that together, that's the right way to do it. So
yeah, I super agree. Right. I super agree. Also, it looks like that account, I Am Destroyer 2009, has already been suspended or deactivated by Twitch. or by the person who made the name. Right, which is deeply funny to me. So you can't even pull it, because I was going to pull it up and read all his messages, but they're already gone. Funny, yeah, gone. So either got it reported a whole bunch of times, or he actually disabled the account. Either way, it's very funny. Very funny.
Well, what is next for you, my friend? I don't want to overstay my welcome. It's been an absolute honor to spend some time with you. And hey, if there's ever any point where we get to, I don't know, do some Helldivers or crack open GML for a little bit, I'd love to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Want to be cognizant of your time, my friend. I know you've been doing this for, 9 hours now?
Dude, I actually stream 12 hours a day, every day. Today I woke up 2 hours late. Yeah.
You're an animal, if I may say.
I know. So the way that I do this, I do 6 days a week. I do 12 hours a day. So I stream every day except for Thursday. So tomorrow's actually my day off. I can do whatever the hell I want today. I want to stream 20 hours today, I'll do it. Like, whatever. We can do whatever the hell we want. So that's not a big problem for me. Today I woke up 2 hours late, and the reason why is because I was up for 48 hours. I actually had a 2-hour sleep, and then I was up for 48 hours straight. And then I did all those interviews over those 48 hours, didn't sleep at all. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to get my normal, 5 hours of sleep, because I sleep about 5 hours a day. And I slept for 7 hours. And I was like, shit. So I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was like, God damn it. And then I got on stream late, and then all the mods are like, where are you? And the community is like, where are you? It was like, So I got 7 hours of sleep, and it was a problem. But no, I'm super rested. I feel great, actually.
Excellent. That's great to hear. It's funny to me that it's like, oh no, I got almost a normal human amount of sleep.
Yeah, no, 5 hours is normal for me. So I've been doing that since I was 16, man. So the way that my schedule breaks down is I work 16 hours a day, every day. 12 hours usually on stream, 4 hours off stream. I get a bunch of work done for writing and stuff right now, and that kind of takes a long process. On Thursdays, I work 16 hours straight off stream. So I'm just working on my own shit, whatever it's going to be, Heartbound stuff for my game or anything like that. Then I do 3 hours of free time. Usually during this free time, I am spending about half of that on the ferret rescue that I run. So spending time with the animals, cleaning things, working on research for treatments, anything that we can do there, that all goes on every day so we can make sure that stuff goes through. If I need to do more research, I cut into this other time because that does happen when we get a critical case that comes in. Sometimes we get a critical case that's like, this animal's going to die unless I figure this out right now. And then we solve the puzzle, we save the life, right? And then after that, I do my 5 hours of sleep. And that's my day. Every single day. Everyone. Do you take vitamins at least? I mean, I take vitamin D because I live in Washington, right? I don't drink coffee. I don't have energy drinks. I drink water. That's about it, you know? Water and orange juice because you got to get vitamin C. When do you eat? Usually during the stream, but I do this so no one can see me. Sneaky food.
Well, look, I think that hard work effort is really a testament to all your success.
Well, big nerd, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, so before you go, actually, we were talking a little bit about compassion on this. Something that I kind of want to get your take on, and this is how I feel about it. Many times people say, just stop being a dick, right? Just stop being mean to the developers. I don't think that works. The way that I feel that this should be, you cannot force another person to believe something. You can give them information, and then they have to come to the conclusion that they think is best. And that doesn't mean they'll come to the same conclusion as you. But the more information that we can spread, the more knowledge that we can push out there, you guys can decide if it's a correct thing or not to be a dick to the developers. And I'm finding that the more information we put out, the less people think, oh, I should be a dick to the dev, right? Yeah. So it's not even teaching empathy. It's just putting the information out. So, like, do you have any things out there? Because I know you do teaching. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, and thank you for asking, because I think that is pertinent to what I like to do and my mission, I hope, similar to yours, and that, like, look, I want to show you the real stuff and, like, what it looks like. And it's, I don't know, maybe sometimes silly to, hey, go see some of the wild and wacky stuff over on the dark web, or to crack open some malware samples or Discord stealers, or I don't know, maybe do that real remote code execution. Let's do some SQL injection to dump a database. I just want to show you how that all happens, and why and where and the way that it's done, so that you're more informed and you can then form your own opinions. And you can maybe, again, probably dragging or extrapolating this out a little bit. You've got the information and you're educated to the point where, like, you can make what I would think is the right judgment call when something hits the fan like this, or when there's a story, or when there's things that we're digging into that takes that investigation, that takes that analysis and takes us thinking, but knowing that, look, we don't have all the answers, and let's be cognizant of that. Let's know where the answers come from. Let's wait patiently when we need them, and let's try to just be professionals and adults and polite and good when we know we're in that waiting, or just all the time. So I hope I can echo that message the same way that you do, my friend.
Yeah, no, I super agree. I think it's something that I'm very happy to do, and I've kind of learned to teach people like that over the course of, you know, being a streamer, right? So I've been a streamer for about 7 years, and I found very quickly, like, just give people everything. Just teach them shit. And what I've learned from that process too is, as long as I keep giving you guys value, you keep showing up to the stream. It ends up being a mutual benefit. We both win. So I get to keep being a streamer. I get to keep doing this kind of cool stuff with the animal rescue and everything else that I get to do. And you guys get to keep learning things and get benefit out of it. It's never going to be one of those one-sided things. If I don't feel like I'm giving you enough value, then I'm going to go find a way to give you enough value, because you need a reason to be here. And that reason shouldn't just be because you feel like I deserve it. It should be that you get something, right? Is the idea. We got ads right now. Gross.
Oh,
I normally pause for ads, but during a thing like this, it's a kind of can't. Oh, but yeah, I guess that's it, man. Is there anything you want to plug to show people your stuff?
No, truth be told, I don't mean to. I don't know, just turn into a billboard or a commercial.
I'm telling you to do it. Do it. Plug your shit. Tell them where they can find you, at least the socials, or I'll do it.
I'll admit, I'm probably a bit of a walking dox. It's my name, it's my ugly face. It's you can track me down on the Twitterverse, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I'd be super duper flattered if folks were willing to tune in. The video that I released this morning was addressing a lot of the Apex Legends conversation. And this was truthfully before this TechCrunch article came out. And I'd been messaging Lorenzo and I was like, hey, this is incredible. You did phenomenal work and great journalism here, digging into the action and doing the right reporting. Because look, this answers the questions that no one had went out to ask yet. And don't get me wrong, I think you and I both, Thor, would have loved to reach out to Destroyer, but you were catching some Z's. I was on an airplane. But I hope this helps maybe bring a little bit more closure to the story. Not to say that the book is closed. There's more to it, maybe. But I hope this colors the picture more and more. But
yeah.
Yo, you can track me down online. I'm on the fellow internet.
I've linked out your YouTube to everybody, so there's no escape from them now. The goblins have you.
You're the best. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Well, I will talk to you later.
All righty. Take care. Until next time. I hope we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, we definitely should. We definitely should. Nice to see you, man.
Soon. Later. Bye.
See ya. But yeah, I think this is pretty wild, man. I think that out of everything that we've seen so far, it really comes down to one piece. We wait for the attacker to reveal his information. We wait for Respawn to announce that they have fixed the issues. And if Respawn says, hey, we've done it, and the attacker says, hey, we've done it, then maybe the attacker will actually reveal what he's done, which would be nice to see, because I think that would give closure.